have a bad taste in my mouth. And my soul.
Video games were a mistake.
Video games were a mistake. Well, hello, Internet. Welcome again to Final Fantasy Friday the 13th, the unluckiest day. We played Final Fantasy XIII and we're done with it.
Yay.
And now we're going to talk about it. Welcome, my co-conductor in this terrible, terrible thing. This pain train that never stops. Chris ZombiePie redacted. Hello.
It didn't stop. It kept going. It kept going, Gino. It just would not stop.
How many hours did you play this game for?
83.
I played it for 34. That's still too many. That's still too many hours. This game's bad, and we're going to talk about it.
So, for our listeners, I believe last time we recorded an episode. Let's paint this story real quick, Gino.
Sure, paint me a word picture.
Last time when we recorded an episode, it was almost a month ago, and I believe at one point I said, "This is the worst thing you've had me play. This is the worst individual assignment. This was painful. This was horrible. This was terrible." I can now say that those comments were wrong. This chunk was the worst thing we have ever played. Like the single most painful assignment for the Deep Listens podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, we played a lot of games on this show over the 3-4 year run that we've had. And, this is probably the worst. Well, it does not have the lowest point, but it is low for 40 hours, which none of the other games that were bad for this long. And
we're basically a situational comedy program. We are a comedy podcast with a few like introspective moments here and there. We got nothing. We can't. Our normal upbeat comedy routines, our skits, our stuff like we've got nothing. This game is horrible.
I'll try. This is a bad game. We will.
This may have been the worst thing we've ever played on Deep Listens. Not just including the Final Fantasy side podcast.
Yeah.
Like even including that.
It compares unfavorably with Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Because Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood ends in half the
And also,
runtime.
Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood is kind of so bad it's good. It's got a B-movie quality to it.
Yeah, it's hard to get mad at something that's that inconsequential. And, Sonic making BioWare-esque decisions on whether he wants to be Paragon or Renegade is kind of hilarious.
In a really cheap ripoff of Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. You can be Big the Cat. There's stuff going on there. There's stuff to like.
What are other bad games we played?
Silent Hill 4, The Room.
That game has moments.
The first half of that game is not terrible. The second half of that game is awful.
Once you get out of the room, decidedly Silent Hill The Room gets bad.
Well, once the room becomes cursed and you can't heal when you go to the room, that is bad.
Jade Empire.
Jade Empire is terrible.
Also has its moments.
But easy.
And quick.
And
exploitable. And fights are a breeze.
Yeah, that game is offensive in a different level because it's racist as hell. But
same thing about Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam. But, I know you guys didn't bring it up, but I think the creators of that game said, yeah, we were inspired by South Park and Family Guy. And it's like,
weird.
I cannot blame you for what you created then because this is the comedy that us as a society values now, which we reward with billions of dollars.
And rewarded them with nothing because that game did not have, it's copyright infringing.
Yeah, and that game's offensive, but also, people, that was literally those guys' first game. And they made it for their friends.
Yeah, for free.
This game was made by adults. Final Fantasy XIII was made by adults. And it almost bankrupted Square, and should have.
Yep. This game took some of the greatest artistic and musical talents in all of games at the time when it was being created and squandered their talent for almost a decade.
And
that's
then
incredible.
They couldn't reboot the franchise, so they had to keep making games on this engine in this universe for another half decade.
Yeah.
No, the better part of a decade.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XV came out, and it's still set in this universe.
Yeah. It's almost 10 years later. 15 finally came out. It's almost 20 years late. And it's still based on this universe because they invested so much in this god-awful, weird trilogy thing.
This assy-looking world populated by nightmare people.
An entire console generation was basically taken up by this. In previous generations, you got 3, generally. 2 or 3 Final Fantasy games. This one got 3, all of them with the same assets.
Bravely Default came out.
Bravely Default was a handheld game.
Yeah, I know. But it was somehow... You remember when Bravely Default came out and everyone was like, maybe Square Enix is going to go back to its roots. They're going to go back to what defined them as a company. And then, they didn't.
They didn't realize.
And then, in fact, Bravely Default 2 was like the complete opposite of what people liked about Bravely Default. It's like this company doesn't learn.
Because they don't know. It's not that they don't learn. It's that they don't know.
They learn the wrong things.
Yep. They have no clue. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with some emails because we got some feedback. You can reach out at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com.
But Gino is a coward, so he'll only read certain comments that he likes.
No, that's not true. The thing is, YouTube changed their commenting system, like their back end, and it screwed up my process.
Even my notifications were screwing up. Like, I didn't know that those podcasts came out. Yeah, And then your comments on Deep Listens has been disabled.
What?
Your comments on your website have been disabled.
I'll have to check it. I don't know what's going on there. But I will fix it. And here's an email or a message that comes in from friend of the show, Jeff Rude.
Oh, fuck.
He says, yes, I will keep polluting your YouTube posts with these. Thank you for your well-reasoned and argued responses to my rambling questions. I think we are all on the same page regarding Final Fantasy XIII lacking the storytelling grace of a Mass Effect the First. My reward for you two is an exercise. Hooray! I'd like you two to pitch a rewrite of Final Fantasy XIII with one key change, a Titus-esque fish-out-of-water character. What would be a good Final Fantasy XIII style sheet compliant backstory for the cipher be? How would the existing character interact with this audience surrogate? Chiefly, would such a character fix any part of the Final Fantasy XIII experience? Looking forward to Final Fantasy II, The Call of Kawazu.
First off, I don't think that this would fix it, but I think it would. If Final Fantasy XIII had a decent story, do you think you'd like it more?
Well, we don't get to fix that. We only get to add one character who will help establish this world.
I'm gonna break this rule.
Okay.
So my pitch is, Lightning is not the protagonist. Okay. Vanille is the protagonist.
I think she already is, but yes.
And we change Vanille from what she is in 13 to Titus. Make Vanille Titus. She's from Grand Pulse, from when Grand Pulse was like a teeming society. And all of these characters have to go to Grand Pulse to find out the truth of what this evil government, social and religious dogma is trying to do to the world. So basically what I'm saying is, take Vanille, make her the protagonist, make her the character that we control for much of the story. Everyone else is just secondary. And it's all about learning more about Vanille's history and learning about the history of Grand Pulse. And the ultimate revelation that Grand Pulse basically lost this war against Cocoon, and it's all dead, and everyone that Vanille loves is dead. And you know what? Just, Fang? Have Fang be like a brainwashed person who's like supporting Cocoon, like they resurrected Fang before Vanille, and now Fang, Vanille's former friend, has been just brainwashed and corrupted, and she has to kill Fang.
So it's like a combination of Final Fantasy X and Kingdom Hearts, where you got Sora, who's with Donald and Goofy, and then there's Riku.
I've never played Kingdom Hearts.
His like childhood friend, but he's like brainwashed and just fighting for the bad guys.
Yeah, sure, why not? What's your idea, Gino?
Mine was like 90% of what yours was. I think you make Vanille the main character. I think that you make her a character who has come out of crystal stasis.
Yep.
But you do not make her the focus. Like, you give up on the fucking 30 hours of her acting dumb.
Yep.
And you instead lean into the fact that she is a fish out of water. Instead of her just, like, acting like, oh, yeah, I totally belong here, guys. Like, she's doing the Titus thing where she's asking questions and she's figuring out the world. And the narration is more, instead of it being, like, big, we all learned that hope was important that day. Instead of saying garbage
it's
like
almost
that.
as if the game would have actual context and world building built into one of the characters. It's almost like we would have one character that explains everything, or is our vessel to learning about the greater world, rather than having to flip through the goddamn codex.
Yeah, I don't. I just want those few comments to be more like, hey, what's going on here? I remember the world when it used to be like blah, but it's not like blah anymore. Where, Cocoon, what is Cocoon? Like, what if she was a character who went into crystal stasis before Cocoon existed?
Yeah.
Like, really does not understand how the world works. And then you have to explain what all of these locations are. And she can, maybe you unveil her, maybe she's in that gigantic pulse vestige like she is in the actual story, but
what if Lightning and her guardian forces go into that Bodum, whatever it is, and then they turn it on, or some accident happens, and then Vanille comes to life, and they thought it was going to be a horrible monster, and maybe there is a horrible monster where Lightning and Vanille have to kill it.
See,
and then
I'm trying to go
happens.
soft touch here. I think that you just put Vanille in the pulse vestige at the beginning of the game, but you're controlling her, and then the entire cast kind of breaks in. And then goes from there.
And just make it like a world where magic is dead, or magic is like de-emphasized, it's evil, it's cursed. Are we basically asking them to make Final Fantasy X?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not asking them to make Final Fantasy X. I'm asking them to make this game have a character that I care about. I just feel like if you had started with her in the main cast, like separate from the main cast, and then they have an understanding that she's not from there, and she's asking a bunch of questions and stuff, then you can do some of the explanations. You can have them do some of the explanations and then go from there, and make the world make sense.
Because when you stop and think about it, Lightning is a terrible protagonist. She's awful. She doesn't engage the world. She doesn't explore her surroundings. She talks to her fellow cast members for basically the first 60 to 70% of the game with a condescending and cold tone. And then all of a sudden, just, you're my friends. And it's like, what?
Yeah, it's like the Squall and the Cloud situation, but way more unearned and just more ham-fisted, and none of the characters really get developed. Like, I would love to... Let me look up what the script of this game looks like. Like, how long is it? Because I bet it's not that long, because almost no one speaks.
No one speaks. And in the place of dialogue and world building, what do we have? We have a bunch of trash mobs and worthless gameplay that feels even longer than what it is because it's all constructed within these narrow, straight, linear corridors. There's something that I still cannot fathom is I'm not against Final Fantasy games being linear because look at Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X is a very linear game. It's not until the very end of the game when you can go back and explore locations, and even then your exploration is seriously curtailed. I don't understand why the linearity of Final Fantasy X was not used as a template for 13.
I mean, it is. It was. It just, from a design perspective, it was. It's just the story they're telling is bad, and so it doesn't matter.
I feel like there's something about the structure of Final Fantasy XIII that is worse than 10, and I think it's the length. Because, and then it's how the characters engage their environments. Like, all of the characters, regardless of their tone, they're inquisitive about their surroundings, and they engage in the mythos of every location that you end up exploring.
Yeah, and I
that
feel
never
like this
happens
world is
here.
just empty and lifeless.
Yeah.
For as many NPCs as they sometimes fill the world with, they will talk at you. You can't really talk to them. They never have anything to say. None of your characters really interact with. There's no shops. You don't need shops. You just need characters that the player characters interact with and kind of inform the world and flesh it out. But that just doesn't exist. Just to polish off Jeff's question, what do I think a fish out of water version of Vanille would fix? I think it would give context to the world, because this game expects you to read codexes to just understand basic shit. And if they just had Vanille asking questions and having characters fill them out and try to give an emotional response, what is a purge? I remember when my brother came into contact with some pulse technology, he was cast out of society. I've never heard from him again. Little things that's like 2 sentences, and that would have given a character more than they have. You could have tied in all of this stuff and fleshed these characters out at the same time, because they would have had to explain things that are painful or things that help inform who they are. But that's just not how the game goes. Instead, you end up with all of these things living in a codex in this bloodless text file that you're supposed to just use to imbue color into this world, and it just doesn't earn it at all.
And I know I've moaned about it already and before, but there's nothing more frustrating than hearing Hope, especially Hope, because for some reason, once Hope is no longer brooding dark teenager, he becomes the exposition dump. Everything he says, he suddenly becomes an expert in everything in the world. It's like, why the fuck weren't you an expert in all this shit before we started this adventure? But we'll get to that eventually. But, there's nothing more frustrating than hearing Hope explain some part of Cocoon Society, usually to Vanille, or just drop a diarrhea amount, just a huge myriad number of proper nouns, one after the other, and then you, the audience, have to go into the menu, flip through the menu system, locate the word, and find the definition of that term in the codex. And they're all sorted in a way where it's just a nightmare to even if you want to do the legwork to find out what anything in this game means, it's just a nightmare. It's a pain in the ass, because it's I have to now look up Pulse and Sanctum. Is that in Cocoon Society, or is that in the enemy documents? It's impossible to, even if I'm willing to do the legwork that the game wants me to do, it doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
And it's a colossal waste of my time.
I'd like to go to so thank you for the email. Thank you for the question. If you want to get in touch with the show, feel free to reach out. We will keep taking questions and emails and such. just touching on a very basic gameplay thing that I started realizing as I got further into the game. Did you ever look at the codex for some of the basic systems?
Yes.
Like buffs and debuffs?
Yes.
Did you notice that some of the buffs and debuffs are not explained?
No.
You're
right.
The codex? Like,
You're
there
right.
are some buffs, I think it's Vigilance and Veil. There's
Yeah,
a certain...
Veil and Bravery, and it's like, I guess I'm just going to use these buffs because they're there and I have a turn to waste, but what is it actually doing?
Yes. There were some buffs that when I was out of combat, I went into the codex and tried to pull it up, and then it wasn't there. Like, they didn't explain it. They explained all the debuffs, but they didn't explain all of the buffs. And I didn't know what the buff was doing. And then in the game, like, as you're playing, it is so fast and hectic, and any seconds that you're not inputting commands is seconds where your main character is just standing there getting killed. I was not menuing. And so I think I looked it up online, what the heck Vigilance does, and it makes it so that your character doesn't get staggered. And by staggered, I mean, if you get hit, sometimes your character will not complete their action. They will just stop acting.
We'll talk more about that later, but...
That buff makes it so that your characters just behave properly when they're getting attacked. And I didn't realize that was what that did. That is actually one of the most important buffs for some fights because it's the only thing that lets your characters do stuff. Otherwise, they're just staggered over and over and over again.
Okay, so I found the list, and this is going to be super quick. I'm going to say one of the status effects. These are all the positive ones, and I want you, Gino, to guess what it does, okay?
Okay, I will try and explain it if I think I know what it does.
Bravery.
Increases your physical attack damage.
That's partially correct. It's strength plus 25%.
Great.
Protect.
Reduces physical damage by, I'm guessing, 25%?
33%.
Sure, great.
Barfire.
Reduces fire damage by 50%?
Raises fire resistance.
Okay. But functionally, how much? Does it say how much?
No.
Okay, whatever.
And also, here's the thing that just drove me insane. There are some status effects where the duration is long. Sometimes they're short. And sometimes the duration of the status effect is permanent until the end of the battle. So, for example, raising your resistance has about a medium length. But adding fire damage to a weapon is permanent.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that end fire was permanent. I thought you had to keep re-upping
it. Now let's go to the ailments.
Okay.
Fog.
Fuck. Does that make it so that your enemies can't physically attack?
No, that disables the target's magic abilities.
Okay, I got it backwards. Great.
Okay, imperil.
That reduces all of your enemy elemental resistances.
Correct. Pain.
That's you can't do physical attacks.
Okay. Defaith.
It lowers your enemy's magic stat.
Okay, you did a pretty good job. Curse.
I think that makes it so they get staggered more.
No, it lowers the target's action and defense success rates.
So they just stagger for no reason.
Yeah.
Great.
Or they miss.
Okay.
Half of these things are not defined.
And then Veil, I think, when I looked it up, it makes it so that you can't get afflicted with status effects.
It raises ailment resistance, and it is a medium length thing.
Yeah, when you try to look this stuff up in the menus, it doesn't actually tell you. It doesn't say what these status effects do, which is, some of them it does, but many of them it doesn't. And there are 6 classes in this game. 6. One of them, or 2 of them, 2 of the 6, 1/3 of the things you can do in this game, they do not adequately explain what the abilities of that job are.
Yeah. And also, we'll talk more about it later. There are 6 classes, and by the end of the game, 2 of them kind of become useless. One of them definitely becomes useless.
We'll talk about it, because I think our opinions will probably be different.
But one of the classes definitely becomes completely and totally useless.
I just want to throw this out there. There are 6 jobs that your 6 characters can have. They blend them up. Each of those jobs has a finite number of abilities that they can even perform. It's not like a situation like Final Fantasy IX where every character is unique and they each have different unique passives and, their individual abilities are esoteric and different. This game, every character can have the same basic palette of moves. Debuffs and buffs. There's like 8 of them. There's not very many. How the fuck can you not explain all of them in your game? In the codex? How does that not... How? Yeah. In your tutorial system, how do you not have that explained? There's not that many moves.
No. And some of them are just like the AoE version of the spell, like bravery, then bravera, faith, then faithra. It's protect versus protectra.
It's unconscionable. This game is so sloppily made. It's ridiculous. But that's just something I wanted to bring up because I noticed it for the first time that I was just like auto buffing because I was controlling a character who was a synergist. And I realized that I just kept putting buffs on people, not knowing what the hell it did. But it was just some more symbols that were next to my character's name, so I figured they were probably safer. But I didn't know why.
I had the same situation happen.
That was 30 hours into this game!
And the other thing... And I had a different reaction to the character classes. When you reach Chapter 10, the game's all like, hey, the characters can now become whatever class you want them to become. It's like, wait, what? What? So what you're saying, game, in this role-playing game, where you're trying to tell me that these characters are independent and different from one another, that these character classes that are supposed to fit, their character... their status, basically who they are basically it's you can use it, you can palette swap it. These classes really don't mean anything unless you want this character to all. It's just, Gino, this is supposed to be a role-playing game. This is supposed to be a role-playing game where the mechanics allow me to live vicariously through the world using the characters. And by playing one character, I have a different perspective and understanding of the world. But when every character is basically tabula rasa, and the few character classes that define them don't mean anything, and anyone can become anything, how am I supposed to role play? How am I supposed to understand the world? How am I supposed to do anything?
Those characters are much better at the 3 classes that they start out with. Like
you can get someone to fill 30 or 40 hours leveling up the Crystarium for the 2 or 3 that they give you.
No, but like the ones that they give you also have a lot more stat crystals in there. Like it is more efficient for those characters to be the predefined classes. That is kind of giving you the room to play around, and I'm sure that if you wanted to, like, flesh out Saz as a medic so that he can kind of be the uber support character, or if you wanted to make, I don't know, Hope a debuffer too, so he's also like an uber support character. Like, there are some rational reasons why you might want to, make these characters a little bit more diverse. But if you just want to get through this game as efficiently as possible, you're just going to dump as many points as possible into the 3 discrete trees that the characters kind of start with. So I'm not going to say that this high level, because you need so many points to even get a character to start going down some of the other trees, and the amount of crystal points that you have to put in to get even basic abilities in the other trees is so prohibitive that it really encourages you to stay on the main path. You really need to know what you're doing to go down the other ones.
And I bet you noticed this, is once you level through the Crystarium pretty easily. But I will say this about the Crystarium and the levels and the character classes. Attaching my ability to level a character's class, use experience points, attaching that to my progression in the story versus the amount that I play the game and the total experience points that I collect is terrible. Like, there were times where I just had a crap ton of overflow experience points for the Crystarium because, you're right, I didn't want to invest in non-aligned character classes, but just all of these experience points would pool up until I reached the point of the game where the game was willing to give me the next level in the Crystarium to put points into.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. Man, the grinding in this game sucks so much.
It sucks so much. And, the Crystarium's not balanced across the characters. There are some characters who have more points to level up than others.
Yeah, and every character, if you're just going to stick to their main paths, they have very distinct strengths and weaknesses. So I do like that if you really lean into it, you end up with characters where you want different characters for different fights. That at least felt a little bit dynamic. But man, it's not that interesting because each of these different roles is so similar. I mean, not different roles. Like, each of the characters, regardless of who they are, whatever role they're playing, they will play that role about as well as some of the other characters. Like, Fang being a commando is very similar to Lightning being a commando, which is similar to Snow being a commando, which is similar to Saz being a commando. Like, the only main differences between them is how high is their strength stat. And that's kind of it. That's the only relevant piece of information.
Yeah.
Saz has a slightly different blitz ability, and he will attack from the back instead of running up to things.
Yep.
Which ended up being meaningful for me for some fights. But
yeah.
You end up with these characters that basically seem like an amalgamation of their stats and then which of the roles they can play most naturally.
And some of the roles don't feel earned. Remember in well, of course you remember, it's your favorite game ever. Final Fantasy IX has 2 summoners.
Yep.
It only has 2 summoners because it's a part of the story. There's a real justification why you only have 2 people who can summon shit. Zidane doesn't magically become a summoner. Steiner doesn't magically become a summoner. Because those are the roles that each character is given a role, and that fits who they are, what they contribute to the story, and how they factor into the greater world. And what I'm trying to say is that by having these character classes just be willy-nilly and open to everyone, it removes what little grounding those characters have with the world. It's like, you can be anything.
Yeah, and in Final Fantasy X, that also is similarly true. Same thing with 8, same thing with 7. Those games really open up and allow your characters to be whatever you want. But they tend to at least have some elements that are their own, like limit breaks or overdrives in 10's parlance. And they tend to have upgrades and things that help define that character. They might have some abilities that one character is the only one that can use or something like that. This game, other than the ultimate moves, like the ultimate attacks that these characters get, there isn't much that really separates them, and you don't get the ultimate attacks until 30, 40 hours in. And if that's going to be the main thing that separates, it's just not that distinguishing. Vanille gets to have a better heal spell than Lightning when you level her up all the way. Okay, that's a slight difference. Vanille gets almost all of the debuffs, except for slow, and Fang gets slow. Okay, there's a meaningful difference, but you don't start noticing these differences until very, very late in the game. And really, there's some difference between being able to cast slow and not, but the debuffs that matter 90% of the time are shared. So you just kind of are plugging and playing whichever character you want. I guess there's the summons, but ultimately the summons I found those to just be more a matter of get out of jail free when your characters are dying.
Were you ever good at actually using the summons abilities? Because I always felt like it's like, I don't know how to play this minigame, and I don't know how to take advantage of these things. And you're right. I ended up just using them when I felt like I was about to die.
Yeah, because they heal everyone.
Yeah, and they would just kill everyone, except if I used it during a boss battle.
I used it during boss battles also to dodge super moves. Like when the animation for the super move starts, you can hit the summon button, and then the super move will miss. And then the summon will come in. So it was kind of like a counter spell, almost. Yeah. But I found that the only one that I could use successfully with any regularity was Vanille's, because Vanille's is just a gigantic fucking gun.
Yeah.
And you just pick which ones you shoot. I did not use Hope at all, though. I never summoned Alexander. I summoned every other summon.
It's the worst-looking version of Alexander in the history of the Final Fantasy franchise. He's like a fucking wall of, like, ornate-looking Victorian stonework, and he's just a bunch of cannons.
Yep. So I feel like that's... We'll get into some more critique of the systems, but... where we were when we last talked about this game was Chapter 11. So at the end of Chapter 10, Cid is revealed to be a puppet of the Sanctum? The Sanctum.
It's something to where... Well, okay, so it starts out with Cid believes that the way that he stops the apocalypse from happening is killing our party, so is that Barthantelis isn't able to use the characters that are destined to bring Ragnarok to Cocoon. He's going to kill them to prevent Ragnarok.
Yes.
And I know we mentioned it very briefly in the previous podcast. There's this character who wants to stop the apocalypse, and everyone's first reaction is to kill him, not have him be a part of your party or have him, help you stop the apocalypse.
He transforms into a crystal monster and then attacks you. But also, no one talks in this game or says it. Everyone monologues. No one talks.
Or pantomimes.
Yeah. These characters monologue at each other in a way that's completely unbelievable, and then you fight, and there's no choice about it. The fight sucks also.
That
and then
fight
Cid
sucks.
Dies and turns into crystal, and he'll never be seen again.
And then he's transported to Barthantelis, who then uncrystallizes him and then makes him a puppet.
Yeah, he turns to crystal and then fades away, and then Barthantelis brings him back to life because fuck this game, man. Because who cares?
And then you fight Bahamut because...
LOL, who cares?
You fight Bahamut because all of the island battles suck, so I don't want to talk about them. They all suck. Yeah.
So
this game sucks.
You start Chapter 11.
So much.
You start Chapter 11, you go to Grand
There's a nice
Pulse.
cutscene in Chapter 11 where they pilot this airship thing, and they're just crashing around, and then the Yang Voss guy starts shooting at him. He's like, I'm gonna get you.
Yep, that's a really pretty cutscene. And then there's also a section where Vanille uses her rod to catch a gigantic flying drake thing, and that's kind of cool. And then
the thing that just fucking blew my mind is this cutscene happens, and like they end up like they jump on a dragon, right? I didn't dream this. This wasn't a fever dream. They jump on a dragon and then use the dragon to go to a different planet?
No. They jump on a ship, and that gets... These are two different cutscenes.
Okay.
There's one cutscene where Vanille catches a dragon, and then Fang jumps on its back and stabs it with her spear and uses it to steer. Then there's another cutscene where they jump on a ship and fly to Grand Pulse, and then the ship gets, like, damaged, and
then some of them start falling
summoning
out.
And doing shit.
And I swear to God, this just drove me so crazy, is when Lightning realizes, oh, shit, Hope's going to fall to his death. I should save him. She just summons her fucking magical thing, and then she starts flying around in the air to rescue these people. And these people use their summons, and these summons, their eidolons, are just totally fine with them just using them whenever. There's another scene where they just all of a sudden decide, hey, how about we use our eidolons?
Yeah, and they all use them.
They all use them.
Ridiculous thing to me is they use them as vehicles, like, to just accomplish tasks. Like, I'm going to use Bahamut as a plane to deal with this problem. And the game just doesn't...
And then
there are
you have
so
to
many times when that
travel
would
through
work.
the world of Grand Pulse, where it's this giant wasteland, and you can't
On
use
foot.
Bahamut to fast travel from one point to the other.
If only we had people who had summons that were cars.
And they just use them during cutscenes to travel or fly or float. And then you're not allowed to use those abilities in the greater world.
That's like the most quote-unquote interesting thing about these summons is that they are also vehicles. And
They're
then this game just... They're Transformers. And I feel like maybe this is the time to mention it. I feel like this game is the Michael Bay Transformers of video games, and not just because the characters look like fucking Michael Bay Transformers. Though that is pretty consistent. Like, there are a bunch of cutscenes that are objectively well put together, but you can't tell what the hell's going on at any given time, right? Like, the action is fast-paced and shaky cam.
They look all similar to one another. They're all this plasticine kind of smooth, clean, metallic look. So when the action does hit and it's shaky cam, like you said, it's virtually impossible to know who's fighting who or what.
Yeah, you can't tell what's going on because there's just so much happening in frame. Also, these characters barely speak. They have very, very, paper-thin motivations. And it's just trying to shuttle you from cutscene to cutscene, from set piece to set piece, and just hope that you don't ask so many questions that it tears the whole thing apart. And then you've got these villains and these heroes just monologuing at each other, and you don't believe that any of these people are really friends or enemies.
No.
Like, I don't know what Yag Roche is really about. The game, when you load up saves, will, explain in paragraphs what these characters were about, and I just laugh because I don't remember any of that really happening. Like, the characters start feeling for Yag Roche, and he makes the ultimate sacrifice. Oh, they really have to consider the lives at Lassie. No, I didn't resonate with that at all. Yeah, so it just feels a lot like a Michael Bay Transformer movie, and I didn't like those films, so I don't like this one that much.
And also kind of like Michael Bay's, just when the action, like when there are these well-produced action scenes, because everything looks the same, it's impossible to ooh, who should I root for? And it's all, and just kind of like a Michael Bay film, the cuts, the juxtapositions, the framing, it's all herky-jerky, quick cuts, transitions to this next scene. It's like, wait, is that Alexander, or is that Odin, or is that Shiva? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't tell which of these summons, and it makes it kind of incredible when they use all of them, and I can understand at an intellectual level how impressive this all was at the time, and how impressive it is even still today. Like, these cutscenes are still better than lots of cutscenes that are in other high-cost games. Like, I can see where the money went, but it just seems really ill-advised. You know? It feels like they spent their money in the worst possible way. Here's a thing that we're going to put a bunch of money into to make basically a bunch of short movies that we're going to play during this otherwise poor-playing game. And the important things about these scenes will be the crazy, wild shit that's happening in them, not really anything about these characters or the world, anything like that. We're going to have this cutscene where someone's just flying on a dragon that turns into a plane. Why? To land. They were falling and they needed to land. This is what we're going to put our weight behind? Yes. Okay. Totally. The sequence that in another game would have just been a jump cut, I feel like in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 even, they would have fallen and then you would have jump cutted to a pre-rendered background where they land. And the game would have just picked up. Right?
Yeah.
I guess in 9 you have the crashing of the ship, right?
Yeah.
That happens and that's pretty impressive. It takes a few seconds. And then you just see them land. There are jump cuts where they're just landing. I don't know, man.
And every cutscene goes on for really long.
Yeah, and it's just hard to follow. It's
so,
busy.
We've been jumping around it. We've been avoiding talking about it. Chapter 11.
Grand Pulse. So it starts with multiple Eidolon battles.
Yeah, multiple Eidolon battles. First off, Gino, I think full disclosure to everyone who says, and we heard it. A lot of people told us this. To everyone who said, "Man, but the game gets better at Grand Pulse," or "Man, it's really weird that Final Fantasy XIII waits until the second to last chapter to open up and become interesting." Who are you people?
Yeah. What did you play? What do you enjoy about games? Please write in.
I'm not
Tell
gonna
me
yell.
what you enjoy about games.
You know what? We're not going to yell at you.
Yeah,
we're not
I'd
gonna
like
we're
to
not gonna
know.
laugh at you. We're not gonna make fun of you. It's like, what do you see in Grand Pulse? Like, what do you actually? What part of repeating the same kill a monster quest line do you enjoy? Like, what part of trying to figure out where you need to go because all of the names suck and they're not labeled on the map? What part of that do you like?
There are no signposts.
What part
you just go
do
into
you
the
like
menu.
about there are only a limited number of fast travel points and you have to unlock them by doing the side quest? Write in. I want to hear you tell me, because we were told, other than Jeff Rude, that Chapter 11 in Grand Pulse was when the game actually opened up and got good. And we heard this over and over again. We read reviews by professional websites that said it's really funny that Final Fantasy XIII waits until Chapter 11 to open up and become fun.
Does it, though?
It doesn't.
Yeah,
it's the worst. Like, if you wanted to see, like, how much of a design document blender job this game is, this Chapter 11 in Grand Pulse reeks of mid-2000 open world game design, where it's a lot of space, a lot of eye candy, some shit thrown here and there, but not a lot of interesting stuff to do.
Yeah, and let me just put on my cap and try to parse out what people might be liking. You might enjoy the combat, and this is where most of it is. This is one of the only spots in the game where you can actually grind. You can get as many battles as you want. So if you like the combat, this is the spot where you will get the most challenges. You will find the greatest diversity of enemy types. You will find a bunch of different configurations of enemies and parties that might be interesting to you. If you like exploration, this area at least has the promise or the illusion of exploration. You can wander around this gigantic map that I feel like is most comparable to the Calmlands in Final Fantasy X. Like, it's a big map full of enemies, but some areas are inaccessible unless you have a chocobo or some sort of specific quest has been.
Some parts of the map are gated away unless you do the XIIIth missions.
Yes. So you end up with this situation where if you're doing the side quests and you like wandering around this gigantic space, and it's beautiful, like it's a really gorgeous map.
I will say, when I first got to Grand Pulse, I was so happy to be at Grand Pulse, because it was just visually, there's nothing in the prior levels. Like, I was getting so sick and tired of the futuristic, smooth and clean metallic look. Just that sterile future that looks like it was pulled from Stanley Kubrick's Wet Dream. Just to have an environment that had life was refreshing. But what you end up doing there, first, there's an Eidolon battle with Hope, and Hope is absolutely intolerable for the first hour. Like, he's all like, "Oh man, I wasn't able to help you guys when we were being attacked by dragons and Yag Ross, and you had to rescue me, Lightning. I feel like
just let me die.
Just let me die." There's that whole sequence where he's like sleeping, and he's all like, I don't have a place here. Oh, Gino, this is the part where it's like, we don't have anything. We don't have any of the resources. We don't have a chance. And then Hope says, we have hope.
Fuck. Fuck this fucking... Ugh.
And then Hope says,
in this game.
we have hope.
And my name is Hope.
And he just... I don't know why, but like when the characters go through their drama and they get all the idolins and they're confident, there's nothing worse than Square Enix writing characters that have newfound confidence.
Yeah.
Like, they've been fucking that up since Final Fantasy I. Like, writing characters with newfound confidence has been Square Enix's Achilles heel for the better part of 30 years.
And child characters, for the most part. They're not great at child characters. And they combined them into one.
Okay. That's just what I find really confusing, is they have had 30 years to read books with these types of characters. And they can't do it. All right, so I'm going to do, I know it takes up time, but I'm going to do Final Fantasy XIII Theater. I'm going to read lines of dialogue that I wrote down. So
okay,
this is right before Hope has to confront Alexander and get his idolin, okay?
Yep.
So this is a dialogue between Lightning and Hope, starting with Lightning. We understand. You're not going through this ordeal alone, you know? This is Hope. But that's what scares me. I don't want to see you get hurt because of me. It would be better for everyone if I just stayed behind. Then an explosion happens. Alexander pops up. Okay, this is Fang. Mention ordeals and look what comes along. And then Lightning says, this is not an ordeal. This is a gift. This is the kind of power you've got inside. And it's telling you not to give up. Trust me. Like, these are the lines of dialogue we have to tolerate just by playing the game.
Yeah.
The dialogue gets so bad.
Here were some that I wrote down. When you think about it, having all this empathy puts us humans at a big disadvantage, says Saz. It's also what makes us dangerous, says Lightning. Fuck. Okay, here's another one. When prayers turn into promises, not even fate can stand in their way.
That entire last scene, like the very, very last scene in the game, has some of the worst lines of dialogue I've seen.
Yeah, we'll
Saz
get there.
says, that's one gift. I'll forgive him for not rapping. What?
God, we'll get there. The last thing I want to say about Grand Pulse.
No, there's a lot to say.
So the last thing I want to say about Grand Pulse in terms of things that are good about it.
Oh, good. Okay, I thought you said we were just going to move on to the next scene, because we got a lot of things to talk about.
The last good thing I will say about Grand Pulse is that all of the characters, all of the creatures in this world actually interact with each other as though they exist in the same world and are different species of creature. And you can kind of think that maybe there is a relation, like an ecosystem here. You know, the world might be alive. These creatures might interact with one another. It's not just, hey, there's this circle of attention that each of these characters occupy, and if you walk in the circle, they run at you, and then if you step outside the circle, they de-aggro. This world, you can see creatures running around in the open field like they're hunting something, or like they're animals in the world. And in a game that has felt so artificial and so sterile and so just frankly cobbled together, and you can just see all of the strings everywhere, Grand Pulse at least does a good job of hiding the strings.
Although there is nothing more frustrating and just flat out lame than seeing some of the same enemies, the same monsters that you saw at Cocoon in Grand Pulse.
Yeah, I mean, there's only maybe 20 or 30 different enemy character models.
And most of them at Grand Pulse are just palette swaps, color palette swaps, I should say, of shit you've already seen at Cocoon.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, they're the same models. They might have added a horn or changed the colors slightly or made the claws slightly different, but they're the same. They're the same monsters. And many of them even have the same mechanics. Like the behemoths on Grand Pulse, you get them down to low life, they grab a sword thing out of their head, and then they use that, and they stand up on their hind legs, and they heal themselves. Like, the way that you fight these things mechanically is even the same.
Yeah.
So you actually tried to do the side quests. I did one, went, wait, these are all just going to be fetch quests? You're going to run to a thing, kill a monster, and then it's going to give you some items? Fuck that. But you tried to do almost all of them. How was that? And tell me.
Well, again, you played 34 minutes, 33 minutes of this game?
34 hours.
I played 83 hours of this game. And Gino is right. They are basically the same fucking shit over and over again. They're the same scene, the same thing, repeated ad nauseum. However, there are some weird there are some weird story moments here that just feel completely unearned and just totally, why would you put it here in the first place? So one of the
Seath Stone stuff?
Yeah, through the Seath Stone stuff.
So can you explain what a Seath Stone is?
So throughout Grand Pulse, there are these kind of floating stones. And you find out that some people, when they fail their focus, they turn into a stone and are forced to prowl the plains of Grand Pulse for their entire life until someone completes the mission, or basically their focus, they're just a stone. And so you can go up to the stone, touch the stone, find out what their focus is, and it's always, I was tasked with killing this monster and I failed.
Yeah, so what they say is that these Seath, they were people, they were Lassie, they were Ices with focuses, and it was always to kill a monster, and then they failed and became Seath, so they became these, like, zombie creatures, and then after being Seath for a while, even that, you cease to be a Seath, and then you become a floating stone that can talk to people and tell them, hey, do the thing that I was tasked with doing, and then if you do that thing, they can rest in peace.
So, you missed out. You really missed out, Gino, and some fun, good nonsense.
These fucking people who died and got turned into stones, right?
Yep.
Millennia ago. Decades, centuries. The monsters they wanted to kill, still there.
Still there.
Still hanging out.
Still hanging
exactly
out
where
in
they
the
were.
exact same spots where they failed to kill them.
Fuck. That's so, like, the storytelling, they didn't even have to do this. Like, all they had to do was make some monsters that were, make the same monsters. Just have, like, a board, right? Like some sort of hunting board. Put a character there. Or, I don't know, make it so that you're selling stuff back to Grand Pulse, right? On the ample number of save points that still exist on Grand Pulse. Like, you're selling it back to Cocoon via the save slots. You don't have to add this layer of storytelling nonsense that makes no sense.
And this is when you really realize how fucking intolerable navigating Grand Pulse is. So sometimes what will happen is you'll have to go to a certain area, walk all the way, go from the exit or the entrance, walk all the way to point A, touch the Seath Stone. And the Seath Stone is, oh, by the way, you got to go all the way back into the previous area where you can finish my mission. And it's like, fuck. Now I got to walk all the way back, go through all of the same corridors, with the same encounters, with the same trash mobs, some of which I can't avoid because they're blocking the narrow pathway that I have to go through. And then you go to Grand Pulse, you open up the map, and it just uses all this fucking terminology that sucks. So, like, one of the missions is like, go to Archlight Steps. It's like, where are the Archlight Steps? Open up the map. Nothing's labeled. Nothing is labeled.
Yep.
Thank God they give you a little star where the mission needs to be completed. But sometimes
they just give you a waypoint.
But sometimes the waypoint is like, oh, to signify that you're not in the right area, we're going to put it in the upper right-hand corner. Well, which exit do I take?
Oh.
Which part of the world do I go to?
It doesn't just give you a waypoint.
No,
that
it doesn't.
You out?
The waypoint only zeroes in on the correct area if you're on the right portion of the map. So if you're in like Vladis Media, that's where you start off in, where the airship crashes. If the mission point marker is there and you're in the normal Grand Pulse area, the mission marker is just floating in the lower left-hand corner saying, well, you got to take one of these exits. And then there are only a limited number of fast travel points, like some of the Seath stones you use to travel from one area to the next. But the thing is that not every Seath stone is a fast travel point. So you can't just go to where the Seath stone or the nearest area. Sometimes the Seath stone is on the southern part of the map and the mission is completed in the northern portion of the map. And so you got to walk all the way up there. All the way up there.
Great.
And I just want to tell you, one of my least favorite was when you had to go to Tian's castle, which we will talk about. But I just real quick, just let me do me a.
There's a castle?
There's a castle.
Huh.
You didn't go to the castle?
I don't think.
That's
wait,
the one
is that
where you beat the Dahaka from
yes,
Prince of Persia.
The gigantic tower, yeah.
So, I just want to talk about Tajin's castle and beating this fucking monster. And then also, some of the Seath look dumb. Some of the Seath look terrible. Like the ones that look like the emo, dark punk, trash metal butterflies, they all suck.
Yeah.
Those things suck so much. They're all terrible.
They look like nobodies from Kingdom Hearts. Man, the people that they've employed to do their character designs, they need to stop sharing them.
Yeah.
They need to stop letting the person who does the Kingdom Hearts designs do the designs in the Final Fantasy XIII. They all start to look the same, and those designs aren't great. They aren't great to begin with, and now you've shared them. You've let it loose, and now it has infected another franchise.
So, there's a secret boss, a secret monster that you can fight that has a mission. And so what you have to do is you have to access the hidden floor on the tower to beat the boss. And what you need to do is you need to go all the way to the top of the tower, which, as we'll talk about, is not a simple process of just taking the elevator and going to the top. You got
to fight monsters that let you unlock
monsters that allow you to unlock certain levels. And, of course, the level 6 one, you have to go to level 6, then go to the other side, then to the 4, and then you can go to the level 6, like the top of the tower. And then you have to go up to a statue, talk to the statue, then find a hidden, previously uninteractable elevator, go to the 7th level of the tower, find the secret golden elevator, take that from the 7th level all the way to the bottom to play a song that wakes up the monster in the tower. Then you have to fight the monster.
Well, I'm sure you got a very good reward for doing all of this.
I didn't get shit. I was told that the next mission is to go to Obra Village, which is a cutscene. You get into a circle, a spheroid, and then you go to Obra Village. And that's the thing. All of those, like, travel to the next area, you got to see all of those cutscenes and transitional scenes all over again. So I hope you like that. But the good news is eventually I got into the secret levels where I got to be with chocobos. I unlocked the chocobos, Gino. And I got to ride the chocobos. Like? The chocobos have like dreadlocks. I'm not sure if you saw the dreadlock chocobos from Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah, they're weird.
They're weird looking chocobos. And then, of course, when you see the chocobos, Saz has a moment where he's like, man, Dodge, my son, always wanted to ride a chocobo. I wonder if I'll see my son Dodge again.
Thanks, Saz.
Thanks, Saz.
I wish my son could see this, and I wish he wasn't a crystal boy.
Crystal boy with clothes.
Man, let me tell you, when you see him as the crystal boy with clothes, and then all the ladies turn into... Vanille turns naked. Fang, it's unclear. Other characters, when they turn to Crystal, do not turn naked. When Vanille stops being Crystal, her clothes magically reappear in like a magical girl scene. Dodge, it's like they just cracked the case of the crystal and he's just fine.
It's like they took the nitrous oxide and poured it on top of him and made a Dodge popsicle.
Yeah, and they just melt it. All these other characters, when they stop being Crystal, their clothes are on. Vanille is literally the only character who turns naked when she turns into a crystal. The rules... Why am I thinking about it? The reason is because they wanted to make her naked so that they could have the scene where they're, oh, are they going to show a thing? No, but naked lady. This game, man, just whatever the lowest brow thing they could be doing is, they're doing that. Okay. If there's a lazy shortcut for storytelling, they take it. If there's just like a really contextually just makes no sense, just a narrative disconnect, they do that too, just to add some wrenches into this otherwise seamless narrative.
And before anyone says, oh, but they build it up, they explain it all in the codex. Okay, real quick. I promise this will be quick, Gino. I'm going to read the codex entry for the XIIIth stones, okay? L'Cie who fail their foci become XIIIth cursed to wander the wilds in a form of living death. Only after many years and much suffering do they extinguish the last of their strength and cease to roam. When this happens, the XIIIth remains slowly fossilized, turning into what is known as a XIIIth stone. However, this transformation does not mark an end to a XIIIth's regret and sorrow for having failed their foci. Even after having turned to stone, the XIIIth cry out, imploring other l'Cie to fulfill the focus they could not. And it's this, I said it before and I'll say it again. All of this stuff that's supposed to be the storytelling of the game is just written in this technobabble. It's completely unintelligible. And because you didn't finish the missions, there's like this really low-rent attempt to do the kind of novel writing from Lost Odyssey. And so if you finish a certain missions, you get these things called the Analects, and it tells a story of what happened to Grand Pulse. And so the first entry is about like the legend of Grand Pulse, and it talks about this, the Maker created two worlds, one Pulse, one Cocoon, one where life lived on its own, the other blah, blah, blah. Humans came from Pulse, the Fal'Cie came from Cocoon, and then eventually they started mixing up, and then the humans that didn't want to hang around with the... It's complicated. But understanding, I want to just point this out, understanding what happened to Vanille and Fang 1,000 years ago, their character-defining moment, the thing that motivates them to be a part of our party and be on this adventure, is a short story that you unlock if you finish optional side quests that are all dog shit.
I want to call out some things that have been in side quests in the past to just try and flesh out exactly how egregious this is. In Final Fantasy VII, in side quests, you can find out stuff about Vincent and Yuffie, and a little bit about Cloud and some of the other side characters.
But
Vincent
also
is
just
optional.
Yeah, Vincent,
Yuffie
who is a character,
is optional.
A character who basically explains Sephiroth's parentage, is an optional character.
Yes. That is an oversight, but he is an optional character unto himself. You don't need to understand Sephiroth's parentage to understand what the fuck is going on. 8. Not really that. You can find out some stuff about Laguna that fills in some gaps here and there. Otherwise, you don't really find out.
Village.
Yeah, Shumi Village. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You can find out little things here and there, about Shumi Village and about Laguna. In 9, you can find out some stuff about Vivi's grandpa. You can find out a little bit about Quina. You can find out a little bit about Garnet. Garnet's real name.
Yeah.
And and her father. You can learn little bits here and there, but not profound things about these characters. You don't learn everything. Like, you can learn a little bit about Amarant and his relationship with Zidane, but that is on the main path. That's a thing you can miss, but it's not a thing that is behind hours and hours and hours of side quests. In 10, nothing's really locked behind side quests. Seymour, I guess, Anima. You can learn about Anima.
I guess you're right.
That's a thing that's behind side quests, and that's easy to miss. So that sucks a little bit, but it's not like 2 of the 6 main characters of your game, where do they come from? Right?
Yeah.
Like, the story that you learn is that Fang and Vanille were Ragnarok. They destroyed Cocoon almost. They almost killed Cocoon. That's a story beat that you don't find fucking out until the last cutscene of the game. You can kind of it's implied here and there over and over and over again, but like what exactly they did, how it happened, I had to read about that shit after the game to fully understand what was going on. It's just bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
So what did you learn through the cutscenes? I mean, through the side quests.
So what I learned through the side quest is that Fang and Vanille lived during the time of the War of Transgression between Pulse and Cocoon. Fang and Vanille lost their families at the hands of the Cocoon army, which was led by their Lassie and Falsey, and they ended up becoming friends at an orphanage. Oh, Gino, why does the worst of Final Fantasy always have to be related to an orphanage or the lack of parents?
Why is the monster that you have to defeat named Orphan?
Okay, so...
At some point, we have to do an on-the-nose name.
Yeah, we have to do
what
something.
Is the worst on-the-nose name in this game?
So Fang starts to begrudge her patron saint Anima because she prayed to Anima to protect her family, and then it didn't. And ends up just being like, man, you guys suck. And it's like, fine, I'll be the sacrifice. And so what the people of Grand Pulse realized during the War of Transgression is they're kind of what Final Fantasy X. They realize they're going to lose the war. And so they do a last-ditch effort where it's like, well, if we can't have it, no one can. We're going to basically preserve 2 of our youths for the future so as that at least some part of our society lives on forever. And so Fang has this kind of outburst in Anima's chamber. She was going to be put to death for blasphemy, and Vanille, who becomes a Lassie, asks for her to have her life spared and offers to complete her focus so as that they don't have to worry about never being apart. And so they become Ragnarok, and then all the people from Grand Pulse are like, oh, thank you for becoming Ragnarok, now we're all going to die. And then they destroy Cocoon, but what the people from Grand Pulse didn't realize is that Cocoon had like these people underground that were ready to go. And so Cocoon comes back, but everyone in Grand Pulse is dead. And Fang and Vanille fulfilled their focus and then become crystals and turned into the pulsed vestige in Bodahum that was Anima's resting place. And they're the reason why everyone in the 13 days flashback cutscenes gets cursed. So she's the person who curses Dodge, and she also curses Sarah.
Is Fang. Fang does that.
No, everyone does that. They both do that.
Yeah, but they play out all that stuff, and it just doesn't matter, because none of it makes sense.
And all the characters suck.
Like, yeah, you can make as much history as you want. If the story's not compelling and none of the characters' motivations make sense, and you hide it behind bullshit, like, who cares if it's there, you know? What does it even matter? Ugh. And, man, Ragnarok being a creature, being like a mythical creature that Lassie can become
That looks
by
like shit.
getting mad, I guess? What a ridiculous story. Okay, let's get back on track.
Okay, back on track. Chocobos. So you can ride the chocobos around in Grand Pulse, and it's one of the best things. And then this is when I realized that a lot of the missions in Grand Pulse are basically fan service, because you find out that not only are there chocobos, but there are cactuars.
What?
There are cactuars, and some of the missions ask you to kill the cactuars.
What?
And do you want to know one of the attacks that the cactuars can do to kill all of your party members?
1,000 needles?
10,000 needles.
10,000 needles? Oh, wow.
And then there's another mission where you have to kill... Oh, fuck. What are the little green lizard things?
Tonberries?
Tonberries. Yeah, there's multiple tonberries you got to kill.
Is there a Moogle?
I did not see a Moogle.
Okay.
But there's definitely tonberries. And there's a weird mini game where you have to collect the sheep's wool. You can shear sheep and then make them animal wool thing.
Great.
And
I'm so glad I didn't do any of these side quests.
The Titan's quest, like I said, some of the Titan quest missions are really fucked up, because what'll happen is the game's all like, oh man, we're going to give you, it's mission 23. How about you go beat a Longui, one of those giant monster demon things that's basically like the game's super boss. It's like, great, defeating the super boss is like the midpoint of this. That's awesome. 83 hours, Gino. 83 hours to read a few codices about, like, Grand Pulse, and then read a short story about how Fang and Vanille were destined to bring the apocalypse 1,000 years ago because they didn't want to be away from each other.
Great. So, you get through Grand Pulse. There's all these side quests. They're all bad.
They're really bad. You got to go through
you get
the
the
tower.
Summons.
Oh wait,
You get
no,
the last
yeah.
summons.
Like some of these summons, like the justification for them happening is just the dumbest thing ever. Like literally, there's just a point where it's like we're just walking along, and then all of a sudden, Fang decides to have like a hissy fit, or like decides to be all angry, and that summons her Eidolon.
That summons Vanille's Eidolon. They're just walking, and then they stop for
and
no
then one
no
character
apparent reason.
just decides to be angry, and then their Eidolon gets summoned.
Yeah, there's no lead up. There's no, and then after it happens,
there's no like conversation.
You don't mention it again.
No, yeah, they just have them now, and there's like this dynamic of like Vanille hiding something from Fang. And it was like she doesn't want to tell Fang that like they're gonna cause the apocalypse, but the game only uses that like that character thing like from time to time when it's convenient to the story.
These characters are not consistent at all. And to keep harping on it, let's just power through, because none of this is consistent. Like, it's not worth our time. This is one of the times where I'm saying a Final Fantasy game, it's not worth our time. They don't care. Why should we?
Yeah, there's a time when you find out, oh man, Sarah and Vanille were friends. And she asked for life advice from Sarah. What does it mean? Absolutely nothing.
And Sarah's like, sometimes lying's okay. And Vanille's like, really? Sometimes it's better to lie than to tell a difficult truth, but you just gotta keep going. Wow, what a cutscene. You get the summon for Vanille, you get the summon for Hope, you go to the stupid tower.
There are weird times
Vanille's summon's weird.
Huh?
It's a gun monster.
It's a gun monster thing that just shoots guns.
It's got a lot of arms, and then it turns into a gun monster, and then the gun monster, she rides it, and then when it does its move, it explodes, and she goes, ah!
Brought to you by the NRA.
It covers her with its arms. She like whips her head back and
it's
makes
the most
this
sexually suggestive thing in the game.
Yeah, every
it's
time
a very
she uses
phallic-looking gun, and then she's just is like, oh, whenever it shoots. It's like clearly a man made this.
Yes.
There are some really forced moments of sentimentality between Snow and Lightning, where it's like, oh, man, I don't know if we're going to save Sarah in time. It's like, yes, you're going to save Sarah. You're going to save Sarah, and you're going to marry her, aren't you? And I feel like we need to talk about it. Lightning goes from dark, brooding, and cold, squall-like, to, like, everyone's now my friend, and I got to stand up for my friends in, like, one scene.
Yeah.
And this version of Lightning where she's like, I just got to give you all your confidence back, is the worst. I know we talked about how Hope is just exposition diarrhea machine, where he just is suddenly an expert about every part of Cocoon society. He sees, like, the tower that you have to go to where there's the Dahaka. He's like, oh, that's Tajin's tower. It's like, what the fuck?
How do you know shit?
How do you know
You
this?
don't live here.
You don't live here? And I was like, yeah, this is Tajin Tower. That's probably Dahaka. It's like, what?
What's a Dahaka? What are you even saying?
What are you saying? How do you know any of this stuff? What is happening?
Yeah, and you go to this tower. There are statues. The statues basically work like Seath stones. They just ask you to kill a monster, and then they activate. And then as you ascend the tower, you'll get attacked by this.
And those statues don't have a codex entry, and I don't know who they are. I don't remember what their whole deal is. I don't know if they were cursed or anything. There's no codex entry. I looked for it. Trust me, I looked through every page, and there's nothing about the Tajin Tower codices and what those statues were.
Yeah, they're statues. They have blades, and they can fly and shoot energy blasts.
And they're somehow sentient?
Yeah, they talk to you, and sometimes when they fight, this Fal'Cie shows up, and they, like, cut off its legs.
They help you out?
Yeah, and then sometimes they die, and like the statues get blown up or something, and then Hope's just like, oh, it died for us. And you have like this emotional relationship apparently with these statues that you don't talk to really, and you don't know what they are or why. Yeah, like we're not exaggerating for people who have not played this game. They don't explain any of this. It makes no sense. And you climb this tower, and then on the top you fight this Fal'Cie that's not especially difficult. But it's kind of cool looking. It's kind of cool looking, and it does do some bullshit moves where if you don't stagger it, it will just kind of kill you. And it's also, this is the point where, like, every boss has, like, one ability to just, like, either dispel every positive buff on your characters or dispel every negative buff that you put on the boss. This is the start where they just keep spinning the plates. Yeah, you just keep spinning the plates, and it's like, fuck, now I have to go back to my paradigms where two characters are saboteurs and one character is a synergist, and then I have to apply the debuffs because my damage is going to do shit unless I have them fight's gonna take forever. Two elements, and then he's going to, like, wipe me out in one shot. Another thing about Grand Pulse that I don't like is how, like, sometimes the enemies are just no big deal, and sometimes the enemies can just, like, one-shot you, and then it's game over. And they're all put in the same map. And you don't know which ones are really bad unless we're talking about the giant, obviously scary dinosaur monsters. But, like, some of the enemies are, like, they can literally kill you in one shot, in one attack. Yep. And you have to physically avoid them. And sometimes you're in narrow corridors. And sometimes, there's narrow corridors, or they're really fast, and they're able to catch up to you. Yep. So, Obra Village. You get to Aruba. Aruba Village, because everyone speaks Australian accents. This is one of the few times when... This is the only good scene in the end of Final Fantasy XIII. I agree. So you get to this town... And it's where Fang and Vanille live, and they thought that it would all be green, but everyone is dead. Everyone who is there dead, and it's covered in snow. Their town is, like, basically abandoned.
It's crystallized, it's abandoned, it's full of XIIIth, so it's kind of slightly implied that all of the XIIIth you fight there are their former friends.
Yeah.
Or what killed their friends.
Yeah, it seems like... So, the picture I was painting was that as this town was dying, the fal'Cie that ruled it just kept making people into l'Cie to do a thing that was impossible.
Yes, that's actually what the short story explains.
And it just kept making people into l'Cie, and then whatever it was asking them to do was literally impossible, so they kept becoming XIIIth. I got it.
And so the XIIIth also, like, the l'Cie end up becoming restless. Dahaka used to be, like, this noble guy who managed this tower, and then once he didn't have people to build his tower and, like, maintain his tower, it fell apart. And that's the reason why he's super angry when he sees you.
Okay.
The only XIIIth that you... Wait, it's fal'Cie that you interact with, and they aren't immediately hostile towards you, is Titan, if you want to do the Fault Warrens. He's the giant guy who you see eat one of the dinosaurs. And
there's also Abaddon.
Oh, yeah, the water guy.
Rolling
Oh, yeah, Abaddon and the water guy who you can fight, but you don't have to fight the water demon thing that you see for, like, a one scene in one level that you go through to get to this fucking town that they don't do a goddamn thing with. And so here's this kind of like resonant scene where you like realize that all of the people that Vanille and Fang love and find precious are dead. Like they were talking about how like all of their memories of their old town and like their old home, and it's dead. It's all dead. And it's like there's even a kind of touching point where it's like Vanille says, no, I need to see this for myself, even if it's like, if it's all gone. And then, yeah, she says it's all gone. And then, you know, like there's a sense of desperation with all of the characters where they kind of recognize that they're, you know, they're chasing after shadows. I think that's what Hope says. It's like there's a sense of hopelessness. Of course, Hope is the one to say, like, this is hopeless.
Fuck.
But
Lightning says there's a storm coming.
There's a storm coming. Yeah, you're right. She says there's a storm brewing. Of course, Lightning's the one to say that.
I don't know if that's actually true, but I feel like everything in this game, I'm surprised that Snow doesn't say, you know, I think it's getting cold out, and then, you know, drives his stupid motorcycle. Like, everything's just the most on-the-nose bullshit.
Yeah, and of course,
constantly.
you know, this is all ignoring the fact that we had to go through this tower to pilot a fal'Cie to go to Oprah Village, rather than, hey, how about we all summon our Eidolons and use them to go to Oprah Village? You guys are experts of this fucking planet, aren't you, Vanilla and Fang? Can't we just use our Eidolons and you show us where it is? No, we have to go up this tower and use the elevator system. And fight the boss.
How's about, why are we on Grand Pulse? We're running to this village with no goal.
Yeah.
These characters are just going there. There's no reason for them really to be here.
Well, yeah, you could argue that they originally came here to get away from the heat from Cocoon.
But ultimately their focus is to do a thing on Cocoon. So it's amazing. You get to the end of Erba, you like run through there. First, you run into like a tiny little robot.
Yeah, did you do the robot mission?
No,
I did.
You have to run.
And you want to know
so
what?
Many fights.
Do you want to know what?
What does it
do
when
this fucking robot? It's
so
like
there's
after
a robot.
There's a little robot called Bhakti, and it's like introduced as like, oh, Vanille's little pet thing. It's a
pet robot.
Her pet robot from back in the day, and of course the pet robot hasn't been destroyed, and so you gotta go.
It just ran out of battery when you got there.
You gotta go find its batteries. You gotta go find the parts, and of course, Saz is an expert with machines, and so I'm thinking, you know what? I have been called to save. God damn it! I am gonna get Vanille her robot back. I told myself this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get Vanille her robot back. And so I convinced myself that if I did this, I would like find some new information. There would be some grounding in the world. Like we'd see some like, you know, maybe some like journal entries from people as they're slowly dying, or we'd learn about what killed this city. And so I get this robot's fucking parts, which is no easy task because all of the stuff in Obra sucks.
There's just monsters everywhere.
Just monsters everywhere.
I started using Deceptisol at this point, and Deceptisol basically applies a buff to your party that makes it so enemies ignore you.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to run around a bunch of fights.
And it doesn't wear down until your first fight.
A couple minutes later.
Yeah. And so I get all these parts. And then Bhakti's
you have
like...
to double back.
You have to go all the way back. And Bhakti's like, congratulations, you're a true Pulsian pioneer. And then it gives me an achievement. And then I find out that all Bhakti is here is to give you 2 achievements. 1, you are rewarded if you take more than 10,000 steps in Grand Pulse. Got it. I don't even think it's possible to not take 10,000 steps in Grand Pulse. So I got that one. And then I find out his other achievement is if I purchase and own every item and equipable thing in the game.
So that's all he does? He gives you achievements?
Gives you 2 achievements.
There's no story?
There's no story. No
he's
codex,
not a robot with a video
no audio logs, no cutscene, nothing. He exists solely to give you 2 achievements in the game.
Fuck. I thought that it would at least, play a video of what happened to the village, or... No?
Nope.
It's just two Chivos?
2 Chivos.
Man. This game.
I went through hell and high water.
That's probably 2-3 hours that you'll never get back for that Chivo.
Hell and high water. And Gino, she said that, getting...
This is my friend Bhakti.
This is my friend Bhakti. Does she have a long conversation with Bhakti? No. No, she does not.
Great. This game's trash. And once you get to the end of Erba, and, a lot of places in Erba, you can, go into buildings and stuff and look at things, and it's like, this looks like it was a pot, but no one will use this pot again. Oh, these shades, they were tasteful, but no one will draw these blinds ever again.
Whimsical colored boxes flank the shattered mirrorless frames. Some young girl's treasure chest, to be sure. It's like, you interact with these, random parts of the environment, and you get, 2 sentences, and then you just move on.
Yep.
There's no world building. There's no grounding with the environment. It's a really spectacular environment. I really like the part where you're walking on, the destroyed freeway, and it's, twisting around and snaking around. It kind of reminded me of some of the environments from Fallout 3 where there's the city that's built on, this decrepit freeway.
Yeah. But ultimately, this is one of the only places that they do this, where they have objects that you can click on and it'll actually give you some explanation. But they don't back it up with anything.
You don't learn about the past. You don't learn about, the people and that they're dying.
What their society was. You don't know how they died. And then you get to the end of this walkway, and there's a XIIIth stone there, and it, plays a video that also doesn't explain anything. It just tells you things you already knew. And then you meet Bartantalus.
No, he's originally masquerading as Sarah, but you know that that's not Sarah.
Yeah, that's the stupidest thing. He tells you, just starts
saying
stuff that you know.
Embrace your destiny of destroying the world. Look at this horrible world. If we destroy it, maybe it will be better again.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then you fight him again, and he looks the same. This battle was probably the biggest pain in the ass that I faced. No, second biggest.
Oh, no, yeah,
one of the biggest pain in the asses. But the way I beat it was by using all of the sols, Aegasol and Fortisol, which gives your entire party all of the buffs to start the battle. And by doing that, because it's kind of the reverse of the first time you fight him, where the first time you fight him, he's got a bunch of faces, and as you damage him, you kind of whittle down the faces. And these faces will kind of do attacks just over time. And so the way you battle him the first time is you take down these side cannons, basically. And then once the side cannons are down, he just gets weaker and weaker and weaker and easier to fight. This one, as the battle goes on a timer, he will grow more side cannons and get more powerful. So you're really incentivized to burst him early and try to get in as much damage as possible. Once I just relented and decided to buff my characters, I was able to get him to about 50% health before he even started using his good moves, before his face showed up, basically.
And, of course, as with any good boss, he's got this fuck you laser beam that basically, like, levels you out to, like, half health.
And he's got a fuck you move that removes all of your buffs.
Exactly. And so this is when I really got frustrated with the boss design in this game, because it's fucked. And so, like you said, first off, you don't do any damage to the bosses unless you stagger them. And so you have this window of opportunity that you really got to plan out. But also, because of the mechanical design of Final Fantasy XIII, you either are able to take advantage of the window of opportunity or you can't. It's like you have
sometimes you just need to heal.
Sometimes
or you need to catch up.
Heal, and you miss your opportunity, and you have to go through the process all over again.
I just found that in most of the boss fights, in other games, you will feel like you've got control of the situation and that you've turned the corner. Like you've done the things you need to do. This game is just the way that the combat plays out is, as I've said before, you're just spinning plates, and at a certain point, the game will say, okay, you need to start spinning different plates. The ones from before are starting to spin down. You need to take care of them. And then in these boss designs, they will just go, you would actually beat this boss if we didn't do something bullshitty. You'd beat it too quickly. So we're just going to go ahead and wipe out all the work you did.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we're going to make this happen.
And so bosses either have two things. One, they're either immune to virtually every debuff in the game.
The most debilitating ones.
The most debilitating ones. So either Fang or Vanille, their saboteur abilities are completely useless. So thank you, game. I spent hours putting points into getting their abilities. Thank you for making at least one of my character's classes completely useless.
I found that I could always debuff at least 4. I could always use Poison, the thing that lowers their defense, their physical and magical defense, and then Imperil, the thing that removes their elemental defenses.
There were some that were completely immune to, like, Fang's debuffs, but not Vanille's debuff, or vice versa.
Okay.
And, of course, also, another thing that's just infuriating is that, like, the bosses... So 2 things. One, the bosses have at least one attack that can, like, inflict virtually every status effect on your characters, which is horrible. Because, as Gino can attest, the game is horrible about managing your medics. You almost always have to have at least one of your medics. If you have 2, you have to have at least one of your medics under your control, because it is dumb.
It makes bad choices.
It makes the worst choices. Like, there will be 2 characters that are at yellow health, which means medium-low health, and it will cast 5 spells of Cura on one character. And then the other character gets KO'd because they were at low health. Other times, what it will do is all of your characters have poison. It will restore them to max health, but then not cast an Esuna on their poison. And so they're back to
it'll just keep healing them over and over
again. They don't cure the poison before healing them up.
It will sometimes prioritize curing over removing debuffs that literally debilitate the character so they can't take any actions. Ultimately, the game does not have the auto battle system, and the AI does not have a clear-eyed perspective on what the most important thing is at any given time. It will often make decisions that are suboptimal, and it's extra unfortunate when you get hit with debuffs, and this game likes doing it with some of the later bosses, because it makes it so that your characters, they can't use items by themselves.
Yeah, they can't use items.
The only thing you can do is, and items, thankfully, you can always use items and always use summons. Like, there are some abilities that even if you're debuffed are still accessible to you, but it's extra infuriating because you are you're maintaining so many different things all at once. If just some of your side characters could take care of shit like using curative items, it would just take some shit off your plate. But it never does. And there are certain moves that are very useful that the AI just will never use properly. And it's infuriating. It meant that, yes, I had to play as a healer a lot because otherwise the characters would not do it correctly.
And then
sometimes I had to play as a synergist because the buffs that the game would pick are not the buffs that I would use. If you're going to be buffing one character, why not use 2 buffs at the same time instead of 1? Like, there's a whole bunch of choices that the AI routinely makes that is inefficient.
Second thing, you have these horrible bosses at the end of the game, and some of the character classes are totally useless because for some reason the bosses and the enemies suddenly gain the ability to ignore your sentinel, which is supposed to be your tank to alleviate the stress and the heat, like their attacks. So while you're healing and your healers are doing their business, the sentinel is acting as a tank, but for some reason all of the late game enemies and bosses are able to ignore the sentinel's abilities.
Yeah, so the aggro drawing abilities of the Sentinel against a lot of late game bosses just don't work. They will ignore the Sentinel and go after your backline characters. The only thing that the Sentinel still does is if there's some sort of large beam attack or something, and your Sentinel is in front of your other characters, and I mean literally, like positioned in front of your other characters.
Which you have no control over.
Which you have very little control over, little direct control over. Then they will they will basically give your characters behind them a slight defense upgrade. And, like, actually a pretty considerable defense upgrade. But the problem is, if you're picking certain character combinations, this will not work properly. Like, if you pick Fang, Snow, and Lightning, for example, and you are using Commando, Sentinel. Because Lightning and Fang both use physical attacks to do, like, actually they run up and hit a thing when they're doing physical attacks, they will not position themselves behind your Sentinel. So even though you've set up a kind of defensive combination, they will run up and attack and get out from behind them. If you pick Saz, however, because he has guns, he will stay behind your Sentinel and actually benefit. Same thing with Vanille, because she has a fucking fishing rod thing, she will attack at distance. Same thing with Hope. So basically 1/3 of your party, if you combine them with a Sentinel, will not benefit from the Sentinel's presence because they will pick moves that will move them out from behind them. And then the other half of your party will always benefit, kind of regardless of how you're playing them. It's a really ridiculous combination.
Yep.
Actually, it's half your party. Half your party, because Snow also physically attacks. Anyone who runs up and hits things does not benefit from a Sentinel in the way that the other half of the party does.
Yep.
And it's simply because if they used Ruin and used magic, they would benefit. But the AI does not pick that way. It will run out from behind cover, like when a super move is about to happen. If you could just position the character, like the Sentinel, to be really close to the enemy so that in almost all contexts your characters are considered behind them, that would solve it too. But you kind of have to trick the Sentinel to run up in front. You have to, like, be a commando and then switch to Sentinel when they're properly positioned. You're spending a lot of energy and time tricking the AI into doing the right thing. And it's the worst.
It's the worst.
It makes all the boss battles harder.
All of the boss battles suck.
So you fight Bartantalus, and then he tells you, well, you need to take this ship to go back to Cocoon and fulfill your destiny, kill Orphan and Eden.
So, real quick, Gino, because I don't know what the answer is. Can you summarize Barthantalus's whole deal right now?
Okay, so he is a fal'Cie.
Got it.
He can turn into a people.
You can turn into a people. Yep.
And he wants to kill everyone in Cocoon because killing everyone in Cocoon will bring back God. And when God comes back, he will make a new universe. He, she, whatever, God. The deity will come and make a new universe that is better than the one that currently exists. And Bartantalus wants to meet this God and bring about its return. Because he's existed for forever, and he's sick of the world that he lives in.
He checked out the internet, is like, man, you guys fucking suck. Time to just burn it all down.
Yeah, basically. He's done with it. And the way that Bartantalus wants to do this is through a convoluted plan where he makes these 6 people into la'Cie, and these specific la'Cie are the ones that are going to do stuff. and because they're pulselessy.
And also, he picks 6 people who, don't know about his grand schemes, aren't especially dedicated to, like, SciComm or this Pulse agenda. It was like, he could have picked, like, 6 of his elite soldiers, like Yag Ross or Booby Lady.
Yeah, he could have used everyone's favorite character, Booby Lady. He could have used any of these characters to enact his plan. He seemed to know that this Fal'Cie vestige existed. He seems to have been in on all of this, but instead he picks 6 random people who do not care about his guidances and actively fight against him. Because this game has plot holes out the wazoo. So you then fly back to Cocoon.
Yep.
You have a scene that is the most Michael Bay's Transformer thing.
Oh, but the part where
game.
they're racing like Tron was kind of cool.
There's a Tron race, and then the robots are fighting the Tron race pods, and then you fight monsters, and it ends with you fighting the Scorpion tank from Final Fantasy VII again, but this time Lightning just has her summon, and she kills it in one move. It's so cool. And then you wander in corridors that are really narrow, and you fight enemies over and over and over again. Fuck. It feels exactly like all the rest of the parts of the game, even though this is supposed to be like the grand conclusion. You end up with a bunch of the random things from Pulse that were trapped in that armory beneath Cocoon. They start getting deployed onto the streets of Cocoon, causing a panic. And Bartantalus, I guess, thinks that this will cause Cocoon to kill itself. So even if the l'Cie, the Ices, do not do what he wants them to, Cocoon will destroy itself. And so he's trying to convince them to just kill me, just stick me. Just kill Orphan. Which, fuck, Orphan is a name, man.
Yeah, Orphan
and so
is
you're
alone.
Running around. Yep. You're up here, and you fight Yag Ross again, and he's in the Proudclad,
and
which you might remember from Final Fantasy VII.
Those boss battles suck!
They suck a lot.
So
both of them
suck. The first boss battle, like, there's a gimmick to where he actually becomes super strong if you stagger him.
Yeah, after he's staggered, he will just unload on you, and he easily can just kill you.
And so this is around the time where you and
he ignores Sentinels.
Yeah, he ignores Sentinels, and he also has like multiple attacks that just are like, oh, you inflicted me with all these status effects? Yeah, I'm going to just reverse all of that hard work. And the reason why we always complain about that is like it takes like 4 or 5 turns to do what you need to do. I mean, just to have the character just wave a magic wand and be done with it sucks. That's like, I got to do that shit all over again, and if I'm not doing damage, I'm losing turns. And this is around the time when I realized that unless you have been fighting every single encounter, unless you have avoided running away from every possible enemy fight, the game will destroy you. You also had this realization that it's like, holy shit, even these random encounters are really hard.
Yeah, I was starting to use buffs on random encounters like Aegisol and Fortisol just to get through. And some of the random encounters, it's not necessarily that they're difficult to figure out what you're supposed to do. They're just bullshitty. Like, they just deal a lot of damage, or they stagger your whole party so you can't input commands properly, or they hit you with a bunch of status effects immediately, and if the effects work, you're screwed. If they don't work, you win very easily. There's enemies that start using death, and if that works, you lose, and if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. There's just there's enemies that do other instant kill attacks, and that's really annoying. There's some enemies that will like slide towards you, and if they like graze your character, then your character won't take an action.
So,
if they miss, and it doesn't even do that much damage, but they just keep you staggered forever.
So yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about next, is the stagger meter is something that I should be able to do, but the enemies shouldn't be able to do. And I realize that's really selfish, but there is nothing more frustrating than some sort of like aquatic creature that has the ability to slide. I bet you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They slide on their bellies.
They slide on their bellies, and they knock people. They don't even do a lot of damage, but they always come in packs of like 9.
Yeah, there's so many, and they all use the slide. They will start by buffing themselves. And once they've buffed themselves, they are fast, and they will slide and knock you down. And when they knock you down, your characters will stop using whatever moves they were using. And because they're sliding at you, even if you have a sentinel that's drawing aggro, they can slide, through the sentinel and hit the people behind them anyway. So even if they're not doing a bunch of damage, your buff and debuff people will not continue taking their actions properly.
And even if you have people who are set up to heal, what will happen is that you'll queue up your heal spells, you'll get knocked over 4 or 5 times, and then you don't get your time back. Those attacks get DQ'd. Your ATB meter is still full, but you don't get your healing spells. You got to go back into the menu system, reselect the ones you want, and then do it all over again. You lose your animation. If it's interrupted, even mid-animation or late animation, you lose your time.
And they will start the animation again from scratch. So you get hit with a penalty. These battles, they're not difficult to figure out what you need to do. They're just bullshit. They add a bunch of layers of nonsense to the fight that makes it take longer. Like, some of these enemies just have a lot of health. They just take a while to get their health down. Some enemies, they combine enemies that you could easily take down with debuffs with enemies that just, screw with your party. And it just makes these random encounters arduous and time-consuming. Not fun, not interesting. They just take forever. And this was right around where I just wanted the game to be done.
Yep.
So I started just using Deceptisols and things to get around this stuff. And the Proud Claude, I think, was the best example. The second time you fight it.
Oh, yeah. The second time you fight it. And it's a great thing that it's immune to every status effect. So good thing I leveled all of Vanille and Fang's Saboteur abilities.
Yeah, and that was my problem. It's immune to literally every status effect, so I could not take it down. I also, Vanille was my best character, and she could not do anything against this thing. So the way that I won was I had 2 commandos and a medic, and I whittled it down from full health to nothingness by attacking it and never staggering it once, because when you stagger it, then it got to do these free gigantic damage attacks
and
that
it's
would
able
take
to
you down.
shoot laser beams and summon guns whenever it feels like it, and these guns just keep shooting you, and they keep shooting you,
and it does splash damage too.
And so he can juggle you in the air as he's shooting you in the face.
Yep. So what I did was I just got 2 commandos and a medic, and then I kept everyone buffed, and I just whittled it down over the course of 40 minutes.
So I was going to say, how long did this Proud Claude battle last for you?
Proud Claude 2 took about 45 minutes. At no point was my party in jeopardy health-wise. I was completely healthy, but it took me 45 minutes. And let me tell you, man, I feel like that's just an emblem of some of the flaws of this game's system. It's not that the combat in Final Fantasy XIII is ever that difficult. It is a risk-reward battle of how much time are you willing to spend in this fight versus how much do you want to accelerate the battle. Because many of the systems you do not need to mess with at all if all you care about is getting past the opponent. If you're cool with just grinding the Proud Claude down, 2 medics and a commando will beat almost every enemy you face. But that takes a bunch of time, and no one's willing to do that. It's not fun. There's a bunch of combinations in this game that work with a very high success rate, and the way that it dissuades you is not by making it unviable, it's by making it unfun. And I wish that this game rewarded you more for playing correctly than it does. Instead, playing correctly is rewarded by making the battles go slightly faster.
Yep.
You never feel like you've got mastery. You never feel like you're doing something especially cool, because none of the characters have abilities that are especially cool. At least until the final battle, I did not feel like I was ever getting one over on the game. I was just doing the steps that the game was asking of me. I was dancing to its tune.
Now, admittedly, I told you about something that you didn't know about until the very end of the game. Now, for anyone who plays this game, when you unlock the kind of last few levels of the Crystarium, you'll find out that there are special attacks. Each character has kind of a special ability that's kind of a named thing. For example, because of nostalgia, Lightning's is called High Wind is Fangs.
High Wind is Fangs, yes.
And these are all abilities of different. I mean, some of them are better than others. Like Vanille's special attack is Death, which does a certain amount of damage, but only has a 1% chance of instantly killing a character. So it's basically kind of like Selfie's The End.
Not even. It only targets one enemy, and it does like mediocre damage to them. So it does allow her to deal a pretty sizable amount of damage for a Saboteur.
Yep.
Like, she doesn't have to switch to Ravager to like stack up stun and damage, which is kind of convenient, but not that convenient, because you have to be Vanille to use this. Because as we mentioned, the AI, and I don't think mentioned this
the
mechanic,
AI never uses the abilities that you unlock that are supposed to be the end goal for these characters. So you take the time to unlock all of these abilities, and the only time you get to use these game-breaking, kind of cool, flashy abilities is if you are controlling a character. The AI is kind of like, nah, I know that Hope has the ability to cast Holy, but I'm not going to do it. I know that Saz has this area of attack ability where he shoots everything in the screen with his guns. Not going to do it. Even though you could probably use it.
Yeah. They will never use the moves. You're the only one who can control it. So it made Vanille the character. All of a sudden, as soon as I unlocked the super moves, I could not control Vanille anymore because her super move was trash.
And this is when you realize that Hope is the best character in the game.
This is when I realized that Lightning was the best character in the game.
Yeah, I could see that the ability of swapping paradigms is kind of critical without penalty, but we should also mention
the final boss
some
fight.
of these special abilities are better than others.
Yeah, by a lot. So Fang and Snow have basically the same special ability.
They catch into stagger meter. So basically, when you use their abilities, it cashes in the stagger meter. So if it's at 9, if you max out the stagger meter and you cash them out, you'll do max damage on a single opponent. Which is the lamest thing, is when these special abilities only attack one opponent, with one exception, and that's Hope.
And also, when you cash it in, if you're a commando, you will use a Smite move, and Smite kind of does a whole lot of damage right when the stagger meter is about to end. So having this super move that also cashes in the stagger meter and does a ton of damage at the end of the stagger meter, but only allows one of your characters to do that instead of having multiple characters smite the same enemy, it
sounds cool on paper, but it's not.
There's already a mechanic, an ability, that Smite, that every commando gets that does something very similar.
Saz I think he attacks every character on the screen. He just shoots. He rains bullets.
He rains bullets on one target.
One target, okay. Which is also not that helpful. And then there's Lightning and Hope.
Lightning does the same. Lightning's is very similar to Saz.
But with one difference.
Okay.
And that is you can switch the paradigms during her animation.
I think you could do that with Saz, too.
You have to time it a little bit different, and I found it easier to use Lightning than Saz. And also, I feel like because of the way that you spec out Lightning just does more damage than Saz.
Yes, she just has better stats.
And then there's Hope. And Hope gets to cast Holy. Now, for those of you that are longtime Final Fantasy fans, you will notice that Holy is basically kind of one of the best spells in any Final Fantasy game. And that is still the case in Final Fantasy XIII. Because Holy is the only elemental spell that basically does universal damage on every single character regardless of their affinity. No one is immune to holy magic. And so you have a spellcaster who basically can circumnavigate every status ailment in the game, or every status immunity in the game.
Every elemental resistance.
Yeah. And the reason why I preferred Hope is Hope's ability, Holy, builds Stagger. And so, unlike the other abilities that sometimes cash in the Stagger, you can just cast Holy to Reckless Abandon. And so what I ended up doing is I would cast one of my positive buffs, but I would always cast Haste first. And then once I get Haste, I would control Hope and just cast Holy over and over again. It was always the spell that I used. Maybe
so
I would do Aeroga, which was the tornado spell because it's an AoE spell, but...
And it staggers
everything. But on paper, this mechanic should be really interesting. It's like, oh, the Crystarium, each of these characters have abilities. But one, the Crystarium at the late game is just the worst. Everything takes too much experience points to level up. Everything is just really slow to progress. And the placement of some of these abilities is questionable. Like, why is Snow's ultimate ability hit in Commando when, you almost always use him as a Sentinel, and then Lightning's ability, despite the fact that she is usually your Commando, is in her Ravager abilities. And so if you have not been leveling every Crystarium up correctly, you might never see these things. And the game never clues you that these abilities even exist.
Yep. That was my big problem, was each of these characters is kind of the best at being one role. And if you don't realize what that role is, at first I thought, oh, their super moves will be at the end of the rainbow on whatever their best skill is. So Hope's will be in Medic, Vanille's will be in Saboteur, Fang's will be in Commando, I guess Lightning's will be in Ravager, Saz's will be in Synergist, and then Snow's will be in Sentinel. Nope. Turns out Saz's in Ravager, Lightning's is Ravager, Vanille's is in Saboteur, so that was actually correct. Hope's is in Ravager.
Fang and Snow are not in Sentinel.
Yeah, Fangs and Snow are both in Commando. So they managed to spread all of these items and abilities out across these jobs so that you really want to be leveling these characters within the three that they're good at, and it greatly encourages you to ignore the fact that they give you the ability to make these characters more diverse.
Okay, so Chapter 13.
Which is fine.
Chapter 13. We're almost there, Gino. We're almost there. Just remind yourself we're almost there.
We're almost there. You go to Orphan's Cradle, which is this giant floating Tron world outside of space and time where there's weird floating ladies.
Here's the thing. We'll talk about the floating ladies later. The game says that, oh man, you got to really speed it up because the cavalry, they're going to destroy Orphan and that's going to cause the apocalypse. You never see the cavalry.
Well, the cavalry, I think, get turned into the, not Falsey, not Lassie. Seath. I think they get turned into Seath. It turns out that they were Lassie also. Everyone was Lassie, it turns out.
Why is their reaction not like, okay, the cavalry's been stopped, let's just go back to Grand Pulse and then just not do the apocalypse. Let's just go home.
Because now there's anarchy on the streets. They need to save Cocoon by defeating Bartantalus and stopping his plan.
Oh, yeah, and for some... Do we ever find out why all the monsters from Grand Pulse start coming into Cocoon?
Remember when you were fighting underneath Cocoon and there's that armory that's supposed to make Lassie into honed warriors or whatever? I think that the things from Grand Pulse are being teleported from that armory. So the armory is underneath Cocoon in order to create a fake war so that it will enrage the people of Cocoon and cause them to destroy themselves as a backup plan because everything's the most convoluted bullshit in this game.
Speaking of convoluted bullshit, you go into this kind of techno pink neon Tron World, and you see these animating statues. One's white, one's black, or purple, or blue.
And one's, and they're ladies. They're ladies with wands.
Yeah, and they wave their magic wands, and they bring up some portals. One will allow you to go back to the worlds, and you can go do the missions, which I did, which you should not do.
Pulse. It lets you go back to Grand Pulse, and the other one I think lets you go back to Cocoon.
No, it lets you go back to the city that's now destroyed, and you get to pick up all the items that you may have skipped in order to get there.
Really? It's just items?
Yeah, you can just go get the items.
Great.
Because you remember when you entered the building right before Yaggroth sacrifices himself, there's this giant dinosaur thing, and it breaks the thing?
Yeah, it breaks the glass.
You can get the other orb thing.
Oh, wow, great. Thank goodness. Well, I didn't go through any of the teleporters because I didn't want to play this game anymore. So
you made the right decision, by the way?
At this point, you just walk on these. Yet again, there's just a bunch of corridors full of monsters. This is the last fucking level, and it plays exactly like the first fucking level. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
I don't understand how they managed to just put the same copy-pasted design for the entire goddamn game.
The worst part
is,
like, the color palette and the actual location don't change. You just flip switches like the first level, and it changes the arrangement of the floor. Like, what? I don't understand. It's like, I'm here to, like, finish the game, and sometimes a flip will be like, it's so bad.
Yeah, the design is the same. It's amazing that this was allowed to happen. You fight a few mini-bosses that are largely, they're Seath, but they're kind of
some of them are easier than others. Like, but also, like, the first one is the Bandersnatch and the Jabberwocky. Why are they called that? Why do they reference Lewis Carroll? You don't know. You have to fight them twice.
You don't have to fight them twice. You have to fight them once. No, you have to fight them once, and then the second time you can avoid them. I did.
Okay.
I did.
And then there's like the Vladislas, which attacks you real fast, which is a pain.
It's got a sword.
That thing is a pain.
So the first one, the Bandersnatch and the Jabberwocky, I beat the first try without even realizing that they were a mini-boss because I debuffed them, and they are vulnerable to all debuffs.
Yes.
So I made it so they couldn't attack, and then I killed them, and they couldn't fight back. It was great.
The sword guy.
And I actually managed to successfully juggle one of them. Like, the stagger had depleted, and yet I kept juggling it, so it never touched the ground until I staggered it again, which was the only time that the stagger system ever felt good. So that was fun. Then
the sword
guy, you need to basically just have someone be a sentinel and tank the damage, and then just keep buffs and healing on that person.
Battle isn't necessarily hard. It just is one of those battles where how much of your time do you value?
Yeah, and he basically does 2 physical attacks and then does a super move that does a couple of random debuffs and then will attack physically. And you can just get stuck on that one where your sentinel, because of like the timing of when they started blocking or the timing of some buffs or debuffs or healing, can get killed for no real, just because of circumstances. And then this dude will start focusing on other characters and will take them out very quickly. So this was a battle where I knew what to do almost immediately, and then it just took me a few attempts to get everything to line up correctly. Third battle is against
Tiamat.
Like a Tiamat, which is very much like Proud Claude. It's got a flying mode.
It's got a flying mode where you're not really able to do very much other than buff yourself and debuff Tiamat.
Yeah. And then he's got a ground laser mode. Where you want a sentinel to block, and then you can lay into him with everything else. He doesn't deal a lot of damage, so he wasn't...
Tiamat is a female.
Okay. She doesn't do a lot of damage, so taking it out is not that hard. Then after you're done with all those stupid mini-bosses...
It's time for the boss rush! But it's also time for the dumbest cutscene I've ever seen. Oh my god, the cutscenes and the dialogue before and after you fight Barthantalus.
Empathy is what, when you think about it, okay, having all this empathy puts us humans at a big disadvantage. But Lightning says, it's also what makes us dangerous. So it makes you think. Fuck. They say that in these cutscenes. You fight Bartantalus, and Bartantalus is like, so you finally fulfill your destiny. And then you fight him, and he's easy
this time.
Nice.
So I do like the fact that every time you fight Bartantalus, he's getting weaker, like physically weaker. He's losing abilities, and he's losing certain attacks every time you beat him.
Yep. Though he does use, like, Ultima and shit that just... This is one where you just need to keep your buffs up.
So I remember, I'm going to find the Slack chat where I flipped out on you. So, okay. So I found it. I watched a Big 3 match on Facebook. That's a dumb thing, but I don't think there's enough to talk about for a proper podcast. And then 4 minutes later, he can fucking cast Doom? He fucking cast Doom mid-match and it hit, and now I have to redo the entire game.
Yeah. Yeah, Bartantalus, the first time you fight him, I beat his first form fine. Then he melts.
Yep.
And he turns into Orphan. It turns out Orphan was him plus Eden the whole time.
So is Orphan a separate person? Or was Orphan the owl thing? Like, is the pit where he goes into the pit, is that basically like the Lazarus pit?
I think that pit, so Orphan was in the pit.
No. Bartantalus was in the pit. And then Bartantalus became Orphan?
No, I think...
Or was Orphan the owl that went into the pit with Bartantalus?
I think Orphan was created when Eden, which is the lady with the wand, which is another
the
fallacy.
Lady with the wand was Eden?
Yes.
When did you find that out?
When I was loading the game, and I implied it based on the weird paragraphs that it tells you as the game is loading.
Also, this is the dumbest looking boss I've ever seen.
It looks like a Persona boss, but without any of the
charm or character or style, and it's actually a giant sword. And I guess it's worth mentioning, like the music, like this is some of the worst final boss music I've ever heard. Like Bartantalus is just like chanting opera music.
It's chanting opera music, and my wife walked in while I was doing this boss fight, and she just went, ho, 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 ho. And I was like, yep, that's...
Great job. You could be
that's exactly
a singer.
What it is. I see you've composed this game. So you fight... Orphan is like this face between two halves, a light half and a dark half. The dark half, I think, is Bartantalus, and it's like this black thing with this gigantic claw arm. And then I think the light half is Eden, which is the lady who can heal, and she has a wand.
And then the bottom half is a giant sword.
And you fight it. This is where I found out how you take advantage of lightning. My crew was Lightning, Vanille, and Saz. And I think that's just the most effective combination because Saz can buff everyone. He has all the buffs. Lightning and Vanille both have Cura, so they can heal everyone. And Lightning's broken because you can use her first. So you debuff this thing, and then her Army of One move. You can start the move when you're a Ravager because that's the version where she has the move. Then as the animation starts, you can swap her to a Commando, which will get all of the chain bonuses that you get for being a Commando for all of the subsequent hits. So you can make her Commando when it's convenient to increase the damage of these attacks, and then swap her back to Ravager immediately after the move is done and the animation is over, so you can do it again. So you can deal all the damage. You can enter the command as the class you need to be to enter the command, and then you can get all the benefits of doing attacks in a more advantageous class, which is broken.
Yep.
Like, you're actively cheating. That's not how it's supposed to work.
But it's in the game, so it's not cheating.
Yeah, it's in the game, so I basically melted Orphan as soon as I realized that was the proper combination. Like, I kept messing around, maybe I need to, be Snow and just have all of this health, because Orphan will, at certain points of the fight, just take the sword out and then put everyone in red health, regardless of buffs and debuffs. And there are some times where that would just kill my party for some reason. Like, instead of putting them at low health, it just killed them, which was super fun. There were some times where I was winning and I was going to kill him, and then he would use an insta-kill move on my main character, despite
Doom
the fact that
or
I had
the laser beam
aggro.
thing. Yeah.
There's one where it's just, like
he also has
circle of light.
So here's something that happened to me. He cast poison on my characters, and then he immediately did the attack that levels you to 1 health. And so before I was able to cast a healing spell, the poison dropped me to 0 health across my entire party.
Okay, that might be what happened for me. That made it kill me. But all of these bullshitty ultimate moves kind of come at one after another, and it turns out that the right way to deal with it is to just have a party where you can have so many medics that you can heal through anything, and then deal all of your damage in the form of a very cheaty, very cheap move. And once I realized how to do that, he was very easy.
And
took him down.
Let's talk about the cutscene that happens after you beat Orphan the first time.
Oh yeah, please, you try and explain
this
what
cutscene,
happens.
So,
huh?
So what ends up happening is that for some reason they stop the battle. Orphan does this whole will you not give the world salvation and make the world right? And then all of a sudden, he's able to kidnap Vanille out of the ether.
Yeah, with magics.
He just uses his magic powers to pull Vanille, and no one does anything to stop him.
Yep.
And he starts torturing Vanille. And electrocuting him, and there's these really uncomfortable cries of pain that I did not appreciate.
Yep.
And eventually, Fang is all "Oh no, the person that I really care about is being hurt. I will offer to bring the apocalypse." And he's like,
"I will become Ragnarok."
I will become Ragnarok, and she offers to become Ragnarok. Everyone tries to stop her. It's like, wait, what do you know you're going to get screwed over. You're going to screw the rest of us over. It's like, I need to save Vanille. And so she does it, turns everyone into XIIIths.
Yeah, their time all runs out. They all turn into XIIIth, and then she turns into Ragnarok.
There's some really good lines of dialogues. She's like, oh no. Here's one of the lines. Are they my sin to bear for choosing salvation?
Fuck. Right.
Salvation is born of sacrifice, miracles of misery. That's Vanille.
Fuck.
And then Barthantalus says, from shattered shards, a new crystal legend will arise.
Right. Fuck.
And then he starts becoming Lord Voldemort or the evil Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. He says on multiple occasions, quote, "Let anger be your strength. Despair, and save us all. Lo, the day of wrath is come." I'm literally reading from my screen caps. And then
yeah, these are actual lines of dialogue.
And when Fang turns into Ragnarok, which is this Amazonian looking wildebeest looking monster, the game decides to have flashbacks with vignetted black and white footage of stuff that we remember back from previous events of the game. You see Hope get rescued by Snow. You see Saz about to shoot himself in the head, and it's just
yeah, all the greatest hits.
All the greatest hits. And then Fang realizes, oh, gee willikers, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have cut a deal with Orphan.
I shouldn't have turned on my friends for no reason. Really, there's no reason. There's no explanation. She starts attacking your team members for no good reason. She turns into Ragnarok. Then she stops for no good reason. She gets attacked by the XIIIth that used to be her friends, and then she just takes the beating for no reason. And then
she turns into Ragnarok, and then starts beating up Orphan. So Orphan wants to die?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And she tears down a shield around him that wasn't there before, and then she stops being Ragnarok, and then your friends come back to life for no reason? They somehow they become themselves again. No real explanation given except friendship.
Yeah, the power of friendship. They even just brush it off how are you guys back here? It's I guess it was Lassie, smoke and mirrors. And really, this is when some of the absolute worst lines of dialogue I have ever seen in my entire life. So I'm going to read some other choice clips real quick. Lightning says, sure, we've all had better weeks.
Fuck. Okay, can you just read it and I'll try and guess who it was?
Okay. Let me see. Somewhere cold and dark, just thinking about everything that happened up until now.
Saz?
Hope.
Fuck.
I was like, I had a glimpse of the future. Everyone was smiling, laughing.
Saz?
That was Snow.
Damn it.
You know, I'm thinking. Didn't really make sense, of course. I mean, knowing we were all worm bait and all, but as luck would have it, next thing I know, I feel someone pushing me right along.
That's
Saz.
That's the Saz I know. Worm bait.
You were all here too. Fang, same side. All of us together to the end.
Vanille?
That's Lightning. We have a new family now. We stick together, you hear me? Listen, you're not alone anymore.
Is that Vanille?
You are correct.
Okay.
And then they all learn the power of friendship, and then they decide to attack Orphan once more time.
Which is exactly what he wanted.
So I don't understand how we go from, oh, they defeated Orphan and killed Orphan, and then didn't do the apocalypse? Like somehow they did the apocalypse slightly different?
They overcame Destiny by doing exactly what the villain wanted the entire game. By following his guidance the whole time.
Oh, here's another good one. If we have the power to destroy Cocoon, then we have the power to save it.
Fang?
Hope.
Fuck. So you fight Orphan. His second form is just the face from the first form. He's invulnerable until you stagger him, and then you can deal him damage. And the fight is done in Doom, so you're timed.
Yeah, you're timed, but it's not that hard. All you need to do is stagger the boss, and then you'll be able to defeat it. This is the last quote. I promise this is the last quote. You gave up on life before you were even born.
Lightning saying it to Orphan?
Correct. Salt poisoning Cocoon from the inside. This is a continuation. Waiting for someone to come and destroy you.
Yeah. This game makes no sense.
And so they do exactly what the evil boss guy wanted us to do, and somehow we don't cause the apocalypse.
Yeah, so as soon as you kill the boss, then Cocoon starts to fall out of the sky, like he said it would, and instead of it crashing onto Grand Pulse, Fang and Vanille, everyone's suddenly falling. You're not in the purple Tron world anymore. You're just in Cocoon, and you're falling, and the four Cocoon people all skydive together, and they form a nice little halo drop. And then Vanille and Fang are by themselves, and they are also halo dropping. And they fuse?
So
Ragnarok.
I guess they ultimately did destroy Cocoon?
They killed Orphan, but the plan was to have Cocoon crash onto Grand Pulse and destroy everything.
So they destroy Cocoon, and then everyone ends up...
They destroy Orphan.
They destroyed Orphan, but basically Cocoon is no longer livable because it's a giant crystal.
Well, no, the power that actually kept Cocoon floating in the air is gone. So it starts falling to the ground.
Okay.
Like gravity starts pulling it. And once that happens, it's going to crash and they're going to fulfill the prophecy. But instead, Vanille and Fang fuse together like Voltron and become Ragnarok, this gigantic lady thing. And it's got, the arms of Hecatonir, and then it's got the Bahamut arm, skin and stuff, so it looks like, it's both of them combined. And then Ragnarok goes down into Pulse, shoots into like its crust and lava, and then it shoots lava up into Cocoon, and then like the lava starts looking like them, right? Like the cutscene is their faces like Fang and Vanille over and over and over again, kind of dancing over Cocoon and covering it in lava, creating this gigantic pillar of crystal that holds Cocoon in place. So instead of it slamming into Grand Pulse and destroying everything, It is suspended on a crystal pillar that saves the world. And it looks like a fish also, like it's a beautiful piece of glass art that's holding Cocoon up, and the people of Cocoon survive. All of the main characters.
Yeah, somehow the world turns
focus
into a giant crystal and a giant with a explosion of energy, and no one died.
Yeah, no one dies. All the main characters fulfill their focus and turn to crystal.
No. Oh wait, yeah, you're right. They turn to crystal, and then
for like 5
Vanille
minutes.
says, "Wake up," and then for some reason everyone stops being a crystal.
Yeah, they all wake up immediately. Also, Daj and Sarah also wake up from their crystal
And are right
sleep.
next to the party as they wake up.
And everyone's brands are gone. All of the we keep waking up and then we're tasked with a new thing and this is a never-ending slavery. That all stops.
Yep.
For no real reason. They're all just free.
The game decides to play like the assiest, like ho-hum, blandest Leona Lewis song because this is a soulless, zombified game. In the husk of a game, and so it plays this like throwaway Beyonce wannabe music.
And then it turns out that Vanille and Fang are going to be crystal forever because
they're naked and crystal forever.
Yeah, their naked crystal love is what's keeping Cocoon floating in the air, whereas all of the other characters turn into clothed crystal and they come back to life normally. And Daj is frozen in an ice cube. So there's no consistency to any of this. So that's
Final Fantasy XIII.
Okay, let's rank this thing.
Okay, number 1, Final Fantasy IX. Is this game better or worse than Final Fantasy IX?
Let's read the whole list before we get to ranking. So at the best Final Fantasy right now, Final Fantasy IX.
Hell yeah.
The second best Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy X.
Game.
Third best, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, still worth it.
Fourth best, Final Fantasy VIII.
Still worth playing.
Fifth best, the Final Fantasy trading card game.
Yeah.
Sixth best, Final Fantasy I.
Don't play that game.
Seventh best, Final Fantasy X-2.
Do not play that game.
Eighth best, Mobius Final Fantasy. And ninth best, Final Fantasy X-2, The Last Mission.
Ooh. All right, let's start from the top.
So, is this better than Final Fantasy IX?
Hell no.
Is this better than Final Fantasy
Nope.
X? No. Is this better than Final Fantasy VII? No. Is this better than Final Fantasy VIII?
Nope.
Nope. Is it better than the Final Fantasy trading card game?
No.
Nope. Is this better than Final Fantasy I? Nope.
No.
Is this better than Final Fantasy X-2?
No.
Nope.
Oddly enough,
And
despite using the same fighting mechanics.
Yeah. It's mechanics.
Mechanically,
it has
it's
so many
overlaps.
overlaps.
Faster than Final Fantasy X too, but it's like a worse
It lost
game,
all the charm.
and then it also starts to kludge up.
It's kind of the same system, except instead of having all these diverse jobs that, their diversity kind of doesn't matter all that much, but they're kind of fun in their nuanced differences.
And somehow,
this one smooshed it all into 6 jobs.
X-2's AI is smarter than the AI in Final Fantasy XIII.
Well, because X-2 doesn't have AI. You control all of the characters.
You control all the characters? I thought you only
you control
one.
all of them. No, you control all of them.
Eh.
That's the big difference, is you're controlling all the characters. And it has a lot of the same problems, but X-2 just has more going on.
And then
It's
also
just
the
more
story is
interesting.
opt-in, so you get whatever you want out of it.
And it's just, it's at least tied into a better story. 13 story is just trash from start to finish. Is it better than Mobius Final Fantasy? I would say no.
Are you going to say something nice about Mobius Final Fantasy?
Yeah. Mobius Final Fantasy is free.
It's free.
You can stop playing it whenever you want. It's a bastard bit of fan service, but you don't have to care about any of it. It is the lowest stakes thing I've played in a very long time.
The lowest of low stakes.
It's exploitative and shitty, but you know what? It's not 40 hours long.
It doesn't take everything that you love about the Final Fantasy franchise and then get it completely wrong. It's fan service. It's fan service, the video game.
It's low stakes. It's not good, but it's not terrible. It is as low as it is right now because it is low stakes and terrible, kind of offensive and exploitative in how it bilks money out of people with cards, but it didn't ruin a whole franchise for 10 years. So,
Yeah.
How bad can it be? It's keeping a company going.
Yeah. A company that should have gone bankrupt.
Now we have the real fight. Is Final Fantasy XIII worse than Final Fantasy X-2 The Last Mission?
In hindsight, I don't know if we should have ranked Final Fantasy X-2 The Last Mission. Because...
Well, we did.
We did. And at the time, that made sense because we had not played Final Fantasy XIII. But Final Fantasy X-2 The Last Mission is this kind of fan servicey nonsense that is totally optional. Totally optional. And
it's a mystery
dungeon game from a studio that's never made a mystery dungeon game.
That's not true. Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon it's a Square franchise. They make mystery dungeon games, but it is a mystery dungeon game that is tacked on to an HD remaster of Final Fantasy X-2.
Yeah.
So you can only get so mad at it, but it's bad.
It's bad.
It's a bad game.
It's unplayable.
Yeah.
It's unplayable in a way that it's even less playable than Final Fantasy XIII.
But it's not 40 hours long.
83 hours if you're me.
83 hours if you're you. And now, well, I guess X-2 The Last Mission does ruin a lot of the things that were nice about 10.
And X-2.
And X-2. It is the bottom of the barrel, the literal bottom of the barrel. It's the last thing in that franchise. This game is the first. This was the introduction
Nova
to a
Crystallis?
The Fabula Nova Crystallis series. And, man, well, I guess we should say, Last Mission, there's, a few cutscenes in it. The art is reused. All of the assets are reused. The music is trash. It is cheaply made from top to bottom. 13 is beautiful.
It sounds good.
The music is pretty good here and there.
Although, we've been saying that the music is really good. Take a game like Final Fantasy VII, which you have previously said the musical score is overrated. Now think back on it.
I think it's still good.
Think back on it. You can at least name one track from the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. One Winged Angel.
Oh, of course.
One
Winged Angel. I like Tifa's theme,
tracks
theme.
From Final Fantasy VII.
It's got bangers.
Yeah. I liked the music of Final Fantasy XIII. I'll be damned if I could name a track or even the person who made them.
I can remember the main theme, the dun 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 dun. That I can remember that, but nothing else. All the other songs.
I wouldn't be able to name that. I wouldn't even be able to tell you what. I can't even tell you who made this music because I don't care.
Yeah, because it's pleasant but not iconic.
And I guess
there's not a You're Not Alone. There's not a Liberty Fatale.
Yeah.
None of those kind of amazing bangers.
I guess
from
what
other
I'm
games.
left
There's no
with
Stecky Dane.
Is Final Fantasy XIII probably has all the parts, all the knowledge and know-how to make a good game. Clearly the people at Square Enix are smart people, except the writing staff. Fire everyone in the writing staff. But all of the people who are designers and programmers and character modelers and concept artists, they're very clearly smart people who know what they're doing, who are very good at their jobs. They had
but it doesn't matter.
all of the ingredients to a good game.
And they did it bad. They did it bad.
I think this game I think this game is worse than X-2 The Last Mission.
So here's the question I guess we have to answer. Is it worse to have aspired to make a great game
and fail.
and to have horrendously failed. Like, indisputably. The fact that this game got 7s and 8s and like 9s in some places when it came out, this game is terrible. Like, really, really bad. It makes me question every reviewer who gave it a good score. Or even a mediocre score.
And you weren't a part of the mod team at the time, but when Brad reviewed Final Fantasy XIII, and he published his review like months after the game's release, and he gave it 3 out of 5, like, there were some really stark defenders of the game. Where have you people gone?
They don't exist anymore because this game was trash. Like, it was so much better looking than everything else that was out at the time. And I can admit that. Like, This game is a technical marvel. If you don't care about that, and if you are cool with the grinding and the nature of the combat,
if you like
there
Michael
is
Bay
enjoyment
movies.
to be had. Yeah, if you like Michael Bay movies. But for what I think both of us come to this series for, this game might have the worst story of any Final Fantasy game I've ever played. It's not only is it bad, it's often incomprehensible. It is both at the same time, which is hard. It's hard to both convey so little information and also have the information you do convey be so distasteful.
And just, even if you want to do what the game asks you to do, which is read codex entries, you're still just as confused. And parlaying the responsibilities of knowing what the game is about to the user and not to the designers and the writers is reprehensible, especially for a role-playing game.
Yeah, this might have the worst case of proper noun syndrome I've ever seen. Like, at no point do they stop adding more proper nouns and names to things. They just add more. You go to Grand Pulse, and then they expect you to know all these different fal'Cie names, and then
they expect you to identify fal'Cie as they're fighting in these scenes that are quickly edited with a bunch of jump cuts and smash cuts with just these amalgamations of metal and plastic that just are indiscernible from one another.
And they expect you to care about all these characters who have almost no connections. Like, honestly, if I could find just a script of this game, I can't, I looked, I would guess that maybe the entire script is like 50 pages. Like, no one talks.
There's no shop owners. You use the save points to shop, which is really lame.
Yeah. There's no personality to any of the NPCs. Like, even when you're in situations where NPCs are desperate and they're hiding and they're doing stuff, they just say, oh, wow, I can't believe I dodged that one. They don't tell you anything. Like, thinking of all the different side characters that I've met in these games and have resonated with me, there's not a single one in this entire 40-hour fucking game. It's so difficult.
Maybe Saz's Chocobo?
But that's not a side character. Like, there are characters like Aerith's mom in Final Fantasy VII that you talk to. There's Tifa's martial arts trainer. There's Cloud's mom. There's the character that Barrett's daughter. Like, all these characters that flesh out. Like, I guess Dodge is the closest thing, but he's only in, like, 2 scenes. And he barely talks. He just says, Daddy.
Well, the Chocobo does definitely become a character by 13-2.
Fuck.
Have you seen the pictures of that?
I have. It's fucking fuck. Like, think of all these different games we've played and how the side character, even like Final Fantasy I, like random NPCs in 1 were more intriguing than some of these characters in 13. That game's over 20 years old. How did they get it so wrong? I don't think it's a worse game than Final Fantasy X-2, The Last Mission. Like, The Last Mission is a cash grab. It is barely even a game, Like, it's a mystery dungeon game without any of the charm, without much of the story.
It doesn't put Square Enix as a developer down this dangerous dark path where they're completely out of touch of what made them a memorable company in the first place.
Exactly. The last mission was probably done by a small team with assets that already existed. It is the end. It is the end of the colon. You know, we are at the end of the process when we get to Final Fantasy X-2, the last mission. It is trying to milk the last semblance of relevance out of the 10 series. This is the first. They spent almost a decade on this game, and it's almost half finished. It still feels that way. It's amazing. I feel like we have to make it the worst game because I hated so much of playing this game. It just went on forever. The designs didn't change all that much.
The gameplay is shit.
The gameplay is shit. You just kept doing the same things over and over and over again. And, like, the feeling of progress wasn't there. It felt like I was unlocking skills that they should have all the time. Like, some of the debuffs just felt like debuffs I should have access to. I was just waiting to have my full character.
Yeah.
I never felt like my character was getting that much stronger until I got the super attacks, which happened in the fucking 30th hour of the game. I got a thing that made my characters feel like I really had an advantage, you know? How?
I don't know.
Can you do that?
I don't know. Do you know what? I look back on it. Do you know what's probably the best thing about Final Fantasy XIII? Is when this game was announced at E3. Do you remember when this game was showcased on, like, they played the same trailer for the original trailer during PlayStation's E3 press conference. And do you remember the huge reaction this game got when they played that same trailer during Microsoft's press conference? People were losing their mind. Like, I actually rewatched that moment where Final Fantasy XIII was revealed that it was coming to Xbox 360. Gino, this is back in 2009 when the console wars were kind of, like, starting to wane, but it was still at its peak.
Yeah, like, I got a PS3 to play this game.
Yeah.
Eventually.
For people who were a part of the Xbox community, this was their first impression of Final Fantasy.
Yeah. It's garbage. This is a bad game. It's amazing that they were forced to make sequels to this game because they could not make more assets to do something else.
And some of those games, like, for example, Final Fantasy XV. God, remember when that game was like, what was it? What was the original title for
Versus 13? Final Fantasy Versus 13.
And then there was like Agiato, which became
Agito.
I don't even know what that was.
That's a PS.
Oh no, that eventually became Type
exclusive.
0.
And then, Type 0. It came out. All of these games came out. 2 of them were rebranded because 13's brand was so toxic. Think about that. They made 2 sequels to 13. It was going to be Agito 13 and Versus 13, and both of those were rebranded because associating it with 13, one, they barely make sense as a like combination, as like a franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing Fabula Nova Crystallis, when they said, "Oh, is this going to all be continuations? Is it the same universe?" They're like, "Well, it's tied together with the stories of crystals." What the fuck does that even mean? It makes no sense. But they, like a decade or 2 decades almost of this franchise's history was tarnished by this fucking game and everything that came with it.
And then you have to also remember that this came out, Final Fantasy XIII, alongside the original version of Final Fantasy XIV. And so Square Enix lost all of their clout as like the Square Enix name meaning like a stamp of quality. Because the original version of 14 was among the biggest shit shows I have seen in a video game.
Yeah. Can we agree that Final Fantasy XIII is the worst Final Fantasy?
It's the worst Final Fantasy.
We agree. Final Fantasy XIII is the worst Final Fantasy. I've never played. This is the worst game I've ever played for this podcast.
This might be the worst game I have ever played. This might be the worst game I've ever played.
Yeah, this might be the worst game I've
ever played.
And I know because I usually don't play this game.
That game was the worst. It's like we joke about things like Nekopara and that sort of stuff. It's like those games end and they are for an audience. I don't know who, like, Final Fantasy XIII is like a person who thinks they're way smarter than they actually are, thinking that they're writing the next big thing, and then it just isn't.
Yeah, this was a bummer. This was a bummer of a game to play.
Like, there's a reason for those that are listening. There's a reason why this podcast was delayed like 3 or 4 times, because the game wouldn't stop. It's like, you need an extension, I need an extension. It just doesn't stop. And then every corner, it just keeps going.
And it doesn't get better. It's not like it gets different or better. There's just more of it. And it's not more of it because it's presenting you with interesting challenges or changes. They just throw more garbage on this critical path line. You never at any point in this game have freedom. It feels like on Grand Pulse, it's an illusion of freedom. It's like the Calm Lands. Like, just because you made the area wider doesn't mean there's interesting shit there. You know? It's just, even the side quests that they made are go to a place and kill a monster. They couldn't even be fucked to make a side quest construction that's more interesting. And they've done it before. That's what's the most infuriating part. They've made better games than this. They know better. Not everyone left with the Gooch, I would assume. When Hironobu Sakaguchi left after 9, some people who knew in 10 they did better. In 10-2 they did better. 10-2 at least, for all of the minigame bullshit that we complained about, I'll take that over nothing.
Like some interactivity with the environment and the characters. Like, it's like even Final Fantasy X-2 has a Waka. Even Final Fantasy X-2 has Cid. Even Final Fantasy X-2 has Brother.
And we were saying in 10-2, I wish that there was a little bit more depth to, like, they asked you to use the combat system more. The combat system's kind of cool. I wish that there was a little bit more of that. I wish they had leaned a little bit more into that instead of all these mini games.
Yep.
This is the opposite.
This is like, give me some variety, because I don't want to playing it like normal.
Yeah, we made a combat system that is narrower and shallower, and we're going to give you
Remember
nothing
when
else.
we had that weird sequence where we piloted a robot using Hope, and we were kind of like, oh, this is kind of neat. This adds some variety. Let's have more sequences like that. And then they never did.
It happened once. Fucking once. And I guess that maybe they thought the minigame was when you summoned things? But no.
Those minigames that you play
wrong.
To control those things, it's hard, convoluted, and the tutorial on how to use the summons is terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. And there's the armor upgrading system. That doesn't fucking matter. Nope. There's the weapon upgrading system. Doesn't fucking matter. You can make all of these numbers go higher, but ultimately you're still playing the same fucking game. And that's what, like, in other games, when you get to the late game content, you feel like you're breaking the game. The game starts fundamentally changing. This one, it doesn't. The numbers go higher.
You keep spinning the plates.
Yeah, it's not like in 10, right? Yeah. That's another pretty linear game. When you really break the game, characters get abilities early or get combinations of skills that feel game-breaking. Like you can give your overdrive meter from one character to another that allows them to just keep piling on overdrives. And so you get these access to these lines of play that you did not have before. That's just not the case with 13. It's just not there. The depth isn't there. Just for kicks, I looked up what speedruns of this game look like. You know, what the tactics are. Most of the tactics are just avoiding random battles. Like how to dodge these random battles. That's not that fun. Like different specific dodges so that you don't have to deal with the random battles. I read like 3 chapters and all of the guidance was on dodging.
What happened, man?
This game's bad. It's the worst Final Fantasy game. So the list is Final Fantasy IX is the best Final Fantasy game, followed by 10, followed by 7, followed by 8, followed by the Final Fantasy trading card game, followed by 1, then 10-2, then Mobius Final Fantasy, then Final Fantasy X-2, the last mission, and the worst Final Fantasy game is Final Fantasy XIII.
And just because I know people are going to possibly not necessarily attack us, but like, it's like, oh man, you're being too harsh. Write us a letter. Write us a letter. Tell us what you see in this game. Tell us what the appeal of Grand Pulse is. We're not going to make fun of you. We're not going to yell at you. We want to know, what do you see in this game? What part of this is appealing?
Who hurt you?
And then also, because we've heard some people say this, and it's just mind-numbing. Like the people who say, well, the game gets really good by Final Fantasy XIII 2 and Lightning Returns. It's like, great. Thank you so much for telling me that it took them 2 or 3 games to figure out how to make this system work.
Ian Kelly tells me that 10-2 is the best.
13-2.
13-2 is the best Final Fantasy
He also
game.
likes 10-2.
Which, nope. No,
I have been told by Ian that they get rid of the Crystarium for like a slot machine, and like Lightning Returns uses the dress sphere system.
Great.
Like uses
that
like putting on costumes.
Great. Hope we see it someday, but the next Final Fantasy game we're going to play is not that. Oh, and if you want to write in, at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or hit up our YouTube comments. We still check there for now. Next up, that's our last. Did you have any last parting shots on 13? Because I'm done.
I wanted to like this game.
I did really, too. I wanted to be wrong.
I wanted to be wrong because I was super wrong. I know I've talked about it before. I was super wrong about 10. I came into this game, into 10, Final Fantasy X, thinking that
you didn't like 9 or 10 early on.
Especially 10, because my only exposure to Final Fantasy X was the fucking laughing scene and everyone talking about how bad Titus's voice actor was. My vision of what 10 was what the internet had manipulated that game as a meme machine into being. That was my vision of what I was going to get out of 10. And it warmed my heart to see characters that acted honestly with emotional transparency, without a lot of angst, but with angst sometimes that felt justified. And the thing about 13 is there's no attempt for an emotional kind of like honesty, because there's no emotions in 13. It's an aberration. It's a charge. It's an electrical current. It's simply there, and it goes from point A to point B, and things happen. You power up a lamp. You power up a coffee machine. You power up a stove. But it's an aberration. It's not a role-playing game. It's a game where roles simply happen. And things just keep happening. There's nothing I feel. There's nothing to feel. There's nothing to interpret.
Yeah. And things barely connect together. So that, I think, is the note we will end Final Fantasy XIII. So we're happy to say we will be turning towards a better Final Fantasy game next.
People keep telling us that it's a good game.
It's a better game. I can vouch that it is better than this. Though we haven't ranked it yet, so we'll see.
Science.
Next we will be taking a short hiatus, or some hiatus, and then we'll be playing Final Fantasy XII. Yep, there we go.
That game is long.
I recommend not doing. So that game actually has real side quests.
But so I think you told me not to play them.
I wouldn't do all of them. The side quests are long.
And that game looks like an MMORPG.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a really weird game. So next we will be playing Final Fantasy XII. Thank you, ZP, for joining me on this terrible journey. May we never play a game as bad as this.
We probably will.
But hopefully it won't be 40 hours. Or twice that. Till next time. Thank you.
Yep.
Peace.